Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, та вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 884 of the news, and it's good to see you all once again. And right now, Russia is a little bit underwater. Their dam collapsed, and it's not good, but it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, as we have gotten news once again of the continuing collapse of the Russian Federation's civilian infrastructure within the area of the Chelyabinsk Oblast, as a major dam has ruptured today and is flooding the entire surrounding area, once again showing that there is a complete lack of funding or attention by the Russian Federation's central government, and that the Russian Federation citizenry continues to suffer as a consequence of this war and the complete lack of any sort of care by the Russian Federation for its own people. Moving on from that, we were also able to hear that apparently the Russians are giving a little bit of that economic stimmy package to the North Koreans that are apparently getting a little bit of minor economic prosperity. They have gone from starving to death to starving, and it seems as though they are on the up and up, and eventually they may just be moving on into the category of famished, which sounds like it is a massive leap forward for the North Koreans. At the exact same time, we were also able to see the Israeli Air Force conducting operations within the southern area of Lebanon and over Yemen today, and got video of some Israeli aircraft conducting defensive maneuvers to try and avoid possible surface-to-air missile fire from the southern region of Lebanon. Meanwhile, inside of Romania, we were able to hear, according to the Romanian government, an official declaration of no involvement in the drone attack that occurred at Izmail and Renai, and that no Romanian forces were involved in the shooting down of any Russian drones that were targeting the port of Izmail and Renai. We will be getting into that in a little bit, though, because that was a very interesting thing to get an official government statement on. However, at the exact same time, within the front lines of Ukraine, things are progressing. The Ukrainians appear to be attempting to uproot and continue to push the Russians out of the area of Vovchansk, while simultaneously consolidating their front lines within the area of Avdiivka after the withdrawal of elements from the 31st Brigade to a more defensible position just west of Progress. Meanwhile, we were also able to see that fighting is continuing near the city of Avdiivka, and we can also see defensive actions occurring around Bakhmut as well. Today has been a very interesting day as far as news coverage has gone, and we have a decent bit to talk about. Starting off inside the Russian Federation, near to the area of Chelyabinsk, as we were able to hear in this area of Russia that there has been a massive dam rupture, and here's the video of that rupture.
Damn. Like, no pun intended, that's like seriously a very big failure on that dam.
That
Мы
is.
на крыше.
Oh.
Тут вообще пиздец нахуй. Мы все тонем, блядь. Тут все тонуло нахуй. У нас в доме вода дохуя просто. Мы сюда на крышу еле забрались, но тут пиздец. Все смыло нахуй. Абсолютно все нахуй.
That water was flooding in.
When was this video released, by the way? Was this like really like right after the dam collapsed, or was this some time after it collapsed?
I would assume that it may have been right after it collapsed, because it seems as though, at least by the daylight, it was at least around the same time of the day. It hadn't turned to evening yet or anything, so it was probably just a few hours later. And we could see, apparently, that this was the Chelyabinsk Reservoir. And so we're going to put that into Google Maps and see if we can find the exact location within the Chelyabinsk Oblast. And it looks like they're showing us everything in Ukraine. Don't we love Google? Let's go over here, and let's put it in again and see if it shows us something over here in Chelyabinsk. So let's see here. This is the... Let's see. Actually, you know what? We're going to just put in this village name, and we should be able to find it a lot easier. So let's put that here, and we want that in Chelyabinsk Oblast in the Russian Federation. And so here's the village that we were looking at. This appears to possibly be the dam that we saw in the video. Let's see if we can geolocate that and get a little bit more of an accurate assessment from that. So we can see some hills in the background. So there are some hills in the background over here. We can see that it is elevated. So I would assume that it actually was this dam right here, and this dam wall somewhere along its length breached and ended up flooding this village, which we saw apparently on film, and then other surrounding villages nearby. Also, is this a military facility out here in the middle of nowhere? That kind of looks like it would be, with how they've cleared out a perimeter around it. I would assume that may be some sort of military facility, although we don't know for certain right now. But nevertheless, this dam rupture was a fairly significant one, considering that the entire local area is now submerged underwater, as this entire reservoir has emptied out literally into the areas just below the south of Karabakh, which is an industrial town within the area just north of Chelyabinsk. But this is a fairly considerable ordeal. It is once again showing us that the Russian Federation is lacking any serious funding. They're not really putting any money at all into their civilian infrastructure. All of it is going into their armed forces. And we're starting to see that in the far-flung provinces of the Russian Federation, everything is falling apart. Bridges are collapsing, dams are collapsing, the roadworks don't exist. There's major flooding going on because of other dam ruptures or dam failures. We're even hearing about possible radiation leaks at nuclear power plants like the Rostov nuclear power plant. It seems as though time and time again, the Russian Federation is showing that the funds for keeping up their country are plumb out. They are full throttle into trying to support the war in Ukraine, and they simply do not have the money or the means to be able to maintain or upkeep any of the infrastructure inside the Russian Federation, which is leading us to believe it is only a matter of time before most of the infrastructure in the Russian Federation completely falls apart and most likely will not be replaced or rebuilt because the Russian Federation simply does not have the money to be able to either try and hire anyone to maintain, upkeep, or even replace these facilities and key infrastructure points as they continue to go into states of collapse and disrepair. But a lot of people have been putting out their opinion on this major Russian dam failure inside of the area of northwestern Chelyabinsk. And a lot of people have been saying that Russia has no money for its own people. All of their money is being put into the war in Ukraine, and it is bankrupting the Russian government as it keeps on going. And for that reason, these kinds of dam collapses, bridge collapses, and every other kind of infrastructure failure will just keep on going because they don't have the money to upkeep any of it. So others are saying that it's a typical Russian failure, nothing to be excited about or nothing to really freak out about. Dams just explode, well, not really explode. Dams just collapse all the time in the Russian Federation, and there's absolutely nothing that makes this special or interesting, according to some. Others are saying that it might be a deal showing that the Russian infrastructure is crumbling, but they need more information, and some people are a little bit unsure and undecided. But everyone is weighing in their opinions on this matter and really trying to consider whether this is a major event, once again showing the Russians are lacking any sort of reasonable amounts of funding to be able to try and keep their infrastructure going, or others are saying different. And Matthew, what are people thinking, and what are you thinking about it?
All right, so on the question of the major Russian dam failing in Chelyabinsk and causing a major civil emergency, is all Russian infrastructure crumbling to pieces? 69%, nice, said yes, Russia has no money for its own, while 18% said it's a typical Russian failure, so no, and 9% said maybe so, but I need more info. And on this one, honestly, like there's no question about it. The Russian government does not have money to maintain the infrastructure because it barely has enough money to fight the war in Ukraine. So even if they did have the money, they're not going to spend it on helping out the normal citizens of Russia. That's not the way it works there. The money goes to the top people and Putin's gang, and it does not go down to the ordinary Russians. And that's why Russia is so poor as a normal country. So I'm with the 69%. But really, honestly, it's probably a lack of maintenance and also good protocols for maintaining things like this dam, that causes it to fail, just like the power plants that we're seeing also failing at the same time. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my opinion, this is certainly showing that the Russians have a crucial underfunding of their public infrastructure. It's something that's actually talked about a lot around the world, is how everyone's infrastructure is constantly crumbling. You can go to any country in the world, I'm not kidding, and there will be a group of people complaining that the infrastructure is as bad as it's ever gotten and is continuing to crumble and deteriorate. They have a group like that here in America, they have a group like that in the UK, they have a group like that in Germany, they have a group like that in Japan. They have groups like that everywhere. Everyone's always thinking that their infrastructure is crumbling. Sometimes they're right. Other times it's generally just people complaining because, you know, what better to do than complain? But in the Russian Federation, it seems to me that those people who are complaining about crumbling infrastructure are right. We saw that a major bridge into Belarus near to the city of Orsha, I believe, collapsed a little while ago, which was a fairly big ordeal. It collapsed into the middle of a rail yard, and not only that, was a major link in between Belarus and Russia. We're now seeing that something similar is also happening deep inside the Russian Federation, with these kinds of dam ruptures happening, among many other things. It seems to me that Russian infrastructure really is starting to deteriorate and degrade, as usually infrastructure of all types requires a decent amount of constant maintenance, and because of that, a decent amount of upkeep costs to keep most of the stuff going. And that usually can be appropriated in a government budget. The United States does it annually, and we usually decide that infrastructure is one of the things that we should fund the least, beyond everything else, which is always interesting to me. But beyond that, the Russian Federation does that as well. But so far in the war in Ukraine, apparently they have decided that infrastructure requires absolutely no funding, and all of that money should be diverted towards supporting the war effort and trying to fight against Ukraine. And so for that reason, I would believe that the Russians really are wildly strapped for cash. And we already know that they are strapped for cash because the Russian government does every single action as much as they can to try and protect their economic institutions. And when that doesn't work in those economic institutions, for example, I believe it was Lukoil gas ended up starting to collapse, they didn't even bail them out because they didn't have the money in the government to bail out Lukoil gas. So going off of that, I think everyone could get a fairly good idea. The Russians are wildly strapped for cash, and these infrastructure failures like that dam in Chelyabinsk is once again furthering the idea that it is getting worse as time keeps going. And as the funds have dried up now, things are only going to get worse inside of the Russian Federation. Meanwhile, moving on from that and out of the area of Russia, we did get to hear that apparently the Russians are helping out the North Koreans economically, at least to some extent. This isn't really a shocker because anyone dealing with North Korea would probably improve their situation. Just the introduction of 3 microwaves in North Korea could probably feed the entirety of Pyongyang. But we were able to hear that apparently the Russians are boosting the North Korean economy just a little bit. According to the information that we have, Russia's arms and ammunition supplies have revitalized the DPRK's economy, according to South Korean authorities. The DPRK's GDP in 2023 rose 3.1% from a year earlier, ending a 3-year decline and showing the biggest economic growth since 2016. They're killing it, y'all. A 3.1% GDP increase of a GDP that is around $880 million. Oh my golly. I mean, they're killing it, folks. They added like a whole wealthy American to their GDP. Like, it's like, look at that. It's pretty impressive.
You know, for North Korea, that is freaking massive. Like any increase whatsoever, because North Korea's been on a negative trajectory for a long time with their economy, and there's been no signs of it improving because, of course, they're a hermit kingdom. They don't trade with anybody except for, I think, China occasionally or something like that, and maybe Russia here and there. But this boost to them is going to be a huge deal. Like, this is going to be like the revolution of North Korea in the eyes of the people because they might actually have some hope in the future. So this will actually play pretty big, even though it looks pretty small.
So really quickly, I want to give you all a little bit of a number crunch here. So I actually did get the actual GDP figure from last year for North Korea. It was 48.3 billion, meaning that the nation of North Korea. You know what, Matthew? Let's go look. Let's see. What is it? The Forbes 500 that puts together the wealthiest people in the world, something like that.
I believe so. Yeah.
Let's see. So let's go to the list of billionaires. So let's see here. What billionaires are worth more than North Korea? So let's find out. Let's see. North Korea GDP of 48 billion. So anyone worth more than 48 billion is worth more than North Korea as an entire country. So Elon Musk as an individual is worth more than North Korea by a considerable factor. He's multiple North Koreas. Jeff Bezos is also worth multiple North Koreas as well. So is Mark Zuckerberg. So is Larry Ellison, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Steve Ballmer, Mukesh Ambani, I believe from India. That's very interesting, man. There's like every single billionaire in the top 10 is an American except for Mukesh Ambani. He's the only non-American. He's actually Indian. Pretty interesting to look at right there. But we also got to see Sergey Brin. Now that's a very Russian-sounding name, but he is American and he's worth $110
That's the Google guy.
Yeah, but his name does sound a little Russian, doesn't it?
I think he might be. Like his heritage might be.
And look at that, man. We got Michael Bloomberg at 106 billion.
Oh no, Michael Bloomberg.
So let's see here. Who else? Let's see. Michael Dell, the Walton family. Well, all the Waltons. So anyone involved in Walmart is wealthier than North Korea. So let's see here.
What is Kim Jong-un's net worth? I bet Kim Jong-un himself is worth more than the entire country is worth at this point.
Kim Jong-un net worth.
It's probably not available, is my guess, but we'll see.
Let's see. He apparently has an assumed net worth of $5 billion.
Oh, okay.
Huh.
How much is
Someone's
North Korea worth?
Well, North Korea annually, GDP wise, is worth 48 billion. So do the math. He's actually by far, at least by the margins there, he's going to be pretty much a large part, a large chunk of North Korea economically, just being worth 5 billion. Someone claims that he's worth 1 trillion, but I think they're on some sort of specialized Peruvian blow to be saying something like that. Because how in the hell can you be worth 1 trillion as an individual living in a country that makes no money? That would be a little weird. But beyond that, it does seem as though North Korea's economy is really going places. And also, really quickly, to get y'all the idea of how big this economic jump is, let us do a little bit of math. Let us do a small amount on a calculator so that way I don't screw it up. So, $48 billion. So, we got billions and billions of dollars times 0.031. So that means that their economy grew about another $1.5 billion over the course of 1 year. That is so
That's
much
pretty
money.
good. And how did it really grow? Let's see. It says Russian arms and ammunition supplies revitalized the economy. But how was sending? So they're saying Russia sent arms to North Korea. That's what they're saying.
I think what they're saying, and they kind of screwed up the wordage, is that North Korea sending weapons to Russia and actually having something to work for has increased their GDP.
Huh, that's kind of interesting. So they're saying it motivated the people. Really, that's all they're trying to say.
I think it's trying to say that it gave them wealth or something. I don't really know because it's not really like the DPRK is involved in any kind of global currency trade. So it's like a ruble is worthless to North Korea, because it's like what will they use that for? Like nothing. So like I don't really know what they're trying to get at here, but they say that the GDP rose 3.1%, which is about $1.5 billion. So I mean that's interesting. But once again, like I was saying.
Wait, John Vanzo said it. That's not even a Pentagon accounting error. I know the United
Yeah.
States has accounting errors which are bigger than this increase. It's crazy.
Dude, that is something good to point out, man. Another thing that's good to point out is that this GDP increase is maybe what we would decide to spend on a failed weapons development project, maybe just a third of that. Like the United States will spend $6 billion on a weapons program, man, and they'll go, I don't really like it anymore. And then they'll just drop the program and it costs like $6 billion to get to that point. That's even bigger than this economic growth. But anyways, moving on from that, it does sound as though the Russians are inadvertently boosting the North Korean economy. But when I say boost, I mean, it's literally a marginal difference. Everyone's still starving in North Korea, so it's not really changing anything, but at least by the figures, their economy is increasing. But moving on from that interesting little bit of news, we are starting to hear that Lukashenko, of all people, called Kim Jong-un his excellency. Now, that was really cringe. I'm not going to lie. He said, His Excellency, in that normal Lukashenko voice. But still, a lot of people are noticing that Putin and Lukashenko are very friendly with Kim Jong-un. And some people are wondering, is this friendship genuine? Do they really like Kim Jong-un? Or is it just purely necessity by the Russians and the Belarusians trying to secure further North Korean arms and support to try and keep their failing war effort going? And a lot of people have been putting in their thoughts, their takes, and their ideas on this matter. And a lot of people are believing that it's pure necessity. But Matthew, is there a group of people out there that really does believe that this is nothing more than just a necessity? So do some people really think that there's a blossoming friendship here? And what are you thinking as well?
So only 8% of the audience said that it's a genuine friendship. So very few people, actually. 74% said it's purely by necessity, and 14% said it's an even mix of both. And very clearly here, this is a relationship of pure necessity. Lukashenko nor Putin want to bow down to Kim Jong-un because I believe the way I see it is Putin believes he's way above Kim Jong-un. And perfectly honest with you, even though Putin is a devil and he's living in a country which is failing because of its bad mistake by invading Ukraine, Putin is on a different level than Kim Jong-un, in my opinion. Kim Jong-un is pretty much at the bottom of any ranking of these leaderships. So for Putin to be groveling to Kim Jong-un, and yes, he's going to grovel, and he is groveling, and also now Lukashenko calling Kim Jong-un his excellency, This is top tier pandering to get some money, and this is pathetic. This is like the utmost shame for these two leaders to have to grovel to Kim Jong-un in North Korea, a poor and pitiful country which can't even feed its own people. But I'm with the 75%. But Enforcer, what say you?
Man, I gotta say, I was actually talking to a Russian diplomat the other day, and I was asking him what his skills were. I said, "So, what kind of languages do you speak? Do you speak Mandarin?" He said, "No, but they speak Pandering." And I was like, "Oh, hey, like look at that!" But I was like, "No way!" And also, I'm not speaking to Russian diplomats, by the way. I saved that for the commies. But beyond that, I would have to say the Russians are speaking a lot of Pandering these days. Not Mandarin, Pandering. And they are trying to pander to the North Koreans to get a little extra piece of ammo free on the house. Because the North Koreans, one thing that I have to mention is that the North Korean economy is so bad. I mean, it's so bad off because their entire economy is revolving around military production. And so that's kind of the reason why they don't have an economy, is because there is no consumer economy. So everything's involving war production. So North Korea actually can produce an incredibly large amount of munitions and equipment, but it's all going to be low-end, low-quality stuff. Everyone knows that, and I've seen it in person. It is low-quality, low-effort stuff. But beyond that, the Russians do need it, and they need it to be able to keep their war effort going. And for that reason, him, Putin, and Lukashenko are going to be pandering the hell and back to try and get this little bit of extra ammunition from the North Koreans. So I would say that it's a friendship of pure necessity, because if it was a true blossoming friendship, excuse me, why wouldn't Russia have befriended North Korea before the war, or way earlier on in the war when they really didn't need them? So it is purely a friendship of necessity, just off of that fact alone.
Right. Remember before the war broke out, Russia was using North Korea as basically a slave labor pool. They would bring in people from North Korea to work at lumber mines, and not lumber mines, but lumber facilities inside of Russia. They would bring them in and use them for that reason. And the camps would actually be run by the North Koreans inside of mainland Russia. So it was very much under the table until the war broke out that you see North Korea really chumming up with Russia. And once again, it's purely out of necessity. This relationship would not exist if it weren't for the war in Ukraine. So once this war ends, or Russia loses, or whatever happens, I'm sure the relationship between North Korea and Russia will probably fall apart.
It probably will, and we will probably see, Matthew, that the North Koreans that are working in those shell factories right now, they'll get put on a train by the Korean government, and they'll go off somewhere, and they'll be in the woods. They'll see a Russian guy, and they'll be like, "So, what are we here for?" And the Russian guy will be like, "You cut." and they'll be like, "Damn it, we're back to cutting in the Siberian forest, damn it." But still, it's
Also, I messed up royally by saying lumber mine. I see people roasting the hell out of me for saying a lumber mine. I'm not gonna lie, when I said that, I was like, oh my god, it's not a lumber mine. I meant like a lumber facility, or a harvesting
camp
operation or something, a logging camp.
That's a harvesting operation. We're working the farm these days. You get out the tiller, you fertilize the ground for the trees. Oh,
man, that's actually on the same tier as the leaf spring joke, or the leaf spring mess up. That's like the lumber mine thing's going to go down in history, I'm sure.
Man, people are going to be, when I run for president in 2040, they're going to pull up that clip of you saying that and trying to attribute it to me. They're going to be like, "This guy has never worked an honest day in his life. He called a logging camp a lumber mill." Oh, no, a lumber mine or something like that. It's
Man, I'm going to play it. I'm going to be like, "Y'all hadn't heard about those lumber mines? Y'all are just uneducated. I've known about those for years, you man. Those lumber mines are where the money's really at. Like,
Yeah.
forget the harvesting operation. The mines is where it's at."
I mean, you got to get that petrified wood deep underground. You know, you got to go dig for that stuff. But beyond that, I gotta say, you know, we're gonna be working in the logging mines after the war is over. And so with that, so it said, I like the idea of a lumber mine. Yeah, I know, right? Like, doesn't it sound cool? I mean, when Matthew said that, I was like, that's wrong, but it does sound cool. I mean, you know, it's like, that would be really neat to have an actual logging mine or something like that. That would be neat to me. But they're going to send them back out to the logging camps out in Siberia and have them start digging for trees. They're not going to be cutting them down. They're going to be digging for them. But still, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least with the whole North Korean Russian thing. And also, one has to understand, the North Koreans are a very desperate country for any kind of help or economic activity. I mean, they sell arms to clandestine groups around the world, especially in Africa, to try and make any kind of money at all, even if it is very questionable ways to make money, they will do it. And that is something that we know the North Koreans will always be doing. So while their friendship may fall apart at the end of the war, I will promise you all that the North Korean logging camps will keep working inside of Russia because they just need any kind of money that they can get. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion, about the North Koreans. And the North Koreans are just such an interesting country to talk about because there is so little yet so much known about them. Like, for example, there is a caste system. We brought this up so many times on this channel, but it's always very interesting to talk about. They have a caste system in North Korea called the Songbun. No joke, it's called Songbun if you spelled it in English. And the Songbun is a caste system that was made specifically by the Juche government of North Korea, which is a specific kind of communism. And it kind of stratifies people based off of their loyalty to the government. And so you have the prosperous class, which are the most loyal people. You then have the wavering class, which are the people right below them, which are loyal, but their loyalty is questionable. And then you have the hostile class, which is the bottom. Those are the ones who work in the gulags, as the army calls it, and they have a very, very low quality of life. From what the army assumes, they make up about 42% of the population in North Korea in the hostile class. And also, by the way, when I say hostile and stuff like that, it actually isn't called that in the Songbun system. There's an actual Korean name for it, but you know, for the U.S. Army's reasons, it is it's something like loyal, wavering, and hostile. Those are the three different castes in the Songbun system. And some people are saying, oh, that sounds kind of like social credit. Now, I say it's worse than social credit because in North Korea, your social credit is impossible to pretty much climb upwards. So if you're in the hostile class, you're pretty much stuck in the hostile class. You're never getting out of it. And another thing is that in North Korea, it carries on for 3 generations. So you could be in the loyal class, like you could be in the top class, the loyal class of the system, and one day you do something that gets you labeled as hostile, and you get immediately bumped down to the very bottom caste, which is hostile. You will never make it out of that caste from that point forward, and neither will your child or your grandchild make it out. It will be your great-grandchild that is finally able to possibly move out of the hostile caste. And that's the only chance they get. And they might not even move out either. So once you get down to the hostile class, you're pretty much stuck down there and there's no way out. So pretty interesting thing about how North Korea works. But there's so much more interesting about them, but we'll have to save that for another time, because we still have so much news to cover. And speaking of which, moving on down into the area of Israel, we were able to see some Israeli jets flying around the area of southern Lebanon and using some chaff and flares to try and make sure that they avoid any ground fire that may be coming from Hezbollah within the area.
Man, got a screaming kid even out here in the middle of the field out here.
Man, I'm telling you, man, you always gotta have someone screaming. And there they go. That was the end of that clip, but very interesting to see. And it does appear that the Israeli Air Force is continuing on action in the area of southern Lebanon right now. Once again, an invasion has not begun. We don't know if an invasion will begin, and we don't know where or when, for that matter. But it does appear that hostile actions are still continuing from both sides as they continue the tit-for-tat against each other, trying to hit the other one where it hurts. And from what we understand, the Israelis are largely winning the exchange, but that is not stopping Hezbollah from trying as the days and weeks continue to go by. Moving on from that and on into Romania, I also have to make sure to clarify a little story that we covered yesterday. And when I say little, it wasn't really little, because we actually put a post about this on Twitter, and that post has gotten about 670,000 views or something at this point. It was probably one of the biggest things that we broke story-wise on Twitter, and it was also watched heavily last night by all of y'all, with about 9.4 thousand people live watching that stream as we were talking about that. We do have a lot of video and picture evidence to suggest that the Republic of Romania did fire on and shoot down Russian drones that were either on the Romanian side of the border or maybe even possibly over the port of Izmail, as video footage did show ground fire coming from the southern side of the Danube River using proximity-fused shells that would highly suggest that that was a Romanian Gepard being operated. However, we did get an official statement today from the Romanian government that gave a clarification denying any involvement in any sort of attempt at defense. According to what we have, the Romanian Ministry of Defense has denied this information spread on social media that Romanian Gepard self-propelled anti-aircraft guns shot down Russian Shahed drones, according to a statement by the Romanian defense industry. So it appears that at least on an official level, they are denying any involvement at the Danube River area near Izmail. However, I once again have to remind everyone that video footage does not lie, and the video footage that we have does clearly show that it looked as though Romanian air defense was operating in this area. This explosion right here is on the other side of the Danube River within the port of Izmail. This video footage is being filmed by Romanian soldiers of the Romanian army on the southern side of the river. We can actually show you all exactly where these guys were in relation to Izmail. So, from what we know, they were somewhere around right here, or somewhere around this area right here, or right here, one or the other, and they're looking across the river and into the area of Izmail, into the port infrastructure area where the actual port operations are conducted. That explosion is happening on the very bank across the Danube River from these Romanians, but they are somewhere, and I want to make it very clear, along the southern bend of the river and looking at an angle, because the river in this area travels from the northwest to the southeast. They are looking somewhere directly north and into the town of Izmail. When we watch this footage, I want to point out something that we'll see. So the explosion, of course, is unfolding. It's being caught on film. But you see the Ukrainian ground fire over there, and really quickly to triangulate that, that ground fire appears to be coming from the outskirts of the city somewhere over here, because notice that they panned the camera far right. It almost looks like it's looking north and west at this point, although it's pitch black and we can't get any landmarks. Just seeing how the camera rotated away from the large explosion somewhere around here, it shows that a lot of the ground fire was coming from somewhere over here. It looks to mostly be heavy machine guns being fired by Ukrainian ground forces. We see them continuing to fire. Another thing to notice is that the tracers burn out, and we don't see any explosions further on in the sky from proximity fused shells. Once again, showing us that these are heavy caliber machine guns that are firing, and that the Ukrainians did not have a Gepard on that side of Izmail. We can see them panning back to the explosion. We can see some more air defense fire from the Ukrainian side. We can see one pop of an explosion. We can see more Ukrainian machine gun fire here on the eastern side of Izmail. And now we can see these shells, which are flying in from far off right. Like, if we're talking about where this comes from, these guys are here. Keep that in mind. This is coming from somewhere over here near Kapana Balka, on the southern side of the Danube River, because it's flying directly over where the Ukrainians were firing, almost directly vertically above them around this area. And then we see these shells flying in somewhere from here on film and into this area where it then explodes. Let me try and put a line right here. This is kind of the general path that those shells took on film. Let me show you all that again. So we see the Ukrainian ground fire. This once again is from the from the eastern side of Izmail. We have a general idea of where that was. Once again, heavy machine gun fire. And then here comes the mystery rounds that we saw a second ago, right there. Now, those are not coming from the Ukrainian side of the river, very clearly. These are flying in from somewhere over here in these fields, over the river and into Ukrainian airspace, and shooting at the drones. This is something that is giving us a very clear idea that it was most likely Romanian air defense that was active. And we can see that it wasn't just a few rounds, it was quite a large amount. And we can also see, unlike other Ukrainian air defense, these rounds are actually exploding in air, showing that there is some sort of a proximity fused shell being used. And we do know that the Romanian air defense has a decent amount of Gepards at their command, which do use proximity fused shells that they fire that are about 35 millimeter in size. And so while they are a fairly large shell for a modern anti-aircraft gun, it's not going to be some kind of a massive looking explosion in the sky. They're going to be fairly small, like the ones we're seeing right there. And we can see them coming in again.
And also, once you add to it what the guys are saying in Romanian down here on the ground, speaking about the Gepards, had they been hit and things like that, once you add their talk to it, it really makes it look very convincing.
It really does make it look incredibly convincing. From what I would be able to say, this is quite obviously Romanian anti-air defense that has been active in this area. We can see Ukrainian ground air defense joining them again. Once again, notice it's heavy machine guns, no proximity fuse shells, and these are coming from the eastern area of Izmail, clearly across the river, inside of Ukraine. We see the fires and explosions continuing on Izmail, but that clip, we showed this yesterday, but I have to show it again. It is very evident in this clip, is a very, very strong argument to be made that regardless of the official Romanian government statement made today, it does look as though the Romanian air defense was involved in the defense of their airspace and started to shoot down Russian drones before they even made it into Ukraine. This is something that I had to break down on that video a lot because I've been seeing over the past day or two, people have been leaving comments on our video, the detective sleuths of the internet who read a headline and they know everything in the world, saying that Enforcer Matt specifically was wrong with his statement on Twitter, and that there was no way in hell that that was Romanian-based air defense, because the Romanians said they didn't shoot, and everyone knows that everything that's said is true. You know, your eyes can show you that someone just got murdered in front of you, but if the government tells you that someone didn't get murdered in front of you, you clearly didn't see it. That was just someone getting hugged to death or something along those lines. But one thing I gotta say is that when we report a story on this channel, we do a lot of research and effort to try and make sure it's accurate. And geolocation is a very big part of that. I usually am the one who does the geolocation more so than Enforcer Matt, although he does a good bit on his own. And even I looked at this footage last night before we covered it, and I made sure that before we covered the story, it was very plausible, if not highly likely, that that ground fire was coming from this area right here on the southern side of the Danube. We didn't go into all this detail last night because we try and cut things down and make them a little bit shorter because we have so much news to cover and we don't want to get hung up on a single story. We want to give you a lot of variety with the news coverage we're getting. But considering how much pushback there's been on this story, which we always get on everything that we do, I decided that tonight we were going to go into a lot more detail, explain exactly what was being seen in the film, where of course the positions of fire were from on the ground air defense side of things, and then explain why that clearly shows that it does seem that Romanian Gepards were involved in shooting down Russian drones over Ukrainian airspace. And that's another thing that people have refuted as well, is saying that the Romanians didn't shoot down any drones or attempt to shoot them down over Ukrainian airspace. If they did try, all of them were over Romania. And that video footage that we have right there is clearly showing the opposite. Those rounds flew over the Danube into this area just east of Izmail and were exploding there, which once again very clearly showing us that those Romanian anti-aircraft guns were firing into Ukraine trying to shoot down those drones. But
And also, just because Romania did deny it, once again, that does not mean that is necessarily true. And also, there's no reason to start blaming Romania either, because we really don't know what the story is in the background. If you believe the footage is indeed true, and it shows Romania shooting across the Ukrainian border to take down these drones coming in from Russia, if you believe that, we really don't even know who told Romania not to actually say this out loud. It could be the NATO administration telling them, let's cover this up, let's don't mention it, or it could be the Romanian government themselves saying, let's try to bury this so we don't escalate. There's really no way to know. Me personally, I'm convinced it looks like they were firing across the border, and the footage to me seems to show that. So regardless of what Romania is saying, it looks like it probably is what it is in the video.
And I would also have to say, because tonight is one of those days, man, I don't know about you, where some things come off as a little bit aggravating. I was wanting to speak on this a little bit tonight. One thing that I don't get, I don't get this at all, is why in the world some people, and you know, a lot of people are about to say these are bots, and I would have to actually disagree. Some of these people are just folks who, for some reason, act like they know everything, like they never entertain another side or another option to things. They always just act like their side is the only side. Now, of course, when people ask me questions on this channel, I'll give y'all my opinion, but I'm not going to rule out y'all's idea completely. I'll always say there maybe is a chance of that, because if I was to say that someone was 100% wrong, that would be pretty foolish, because there is a chance that that person could be right, and there's a chance that I could be completely wrong. And so why in the world say that someone's completely wrong? I find it so annoying that a lot of people always doubt our coverage or doubt the stories that we put out when we always have video and picture evidence to go along with everything we say. We've been doing that for 884 days now. Everything I say on this channel either has an official government statement, and we even will show official government statements that completely contradict our stories that we put out, like the story we put out yesterday about the Romanian-based ground fire. The Romanians have completely refuted that story today on an official statement that was then put out by the Kyiv Post. We just read that on air. But then we will go through and we will do the due diligence to actually show y'all where that ground fire was coming from and to give y'all an idea of the plausibility of our story and to actually argue its case. But for some reason, people never give the benefit of the doubt to this channel when we try and report news. Well, like, we try and report things all the time. Sometimes they're not things people want to hear, but they are things that seem to be unfolding fairly accurately. Like, for example, Ukrainian-Chinese relations. We have been saying for months now that Chinese and Ukrainian relations are certainly not a good thing, and the West should strongly, largely warn Ukraine not to do anything with China, not to condemn them, not to support them, just have nothing to do with them and don't say anything to them. And the West didn't do that, and now we see that Kubala went to China, and now Wang Yi, the foreign minister of China, is making it very clear that they're going to start pulling Ukraine into a Chinese sphere, and they're going to start working incredibly hard at that. We have been saying that for months, and we've been saying that the Ukrainians trying to have any sort of open dialogue with the Chinese was going to lead down that route, and it did. And that route is in action right now. And people were bucking us tooth and nail the entire time. People didn't even want to say, well, that seems plausible, or that could be a chance. People just wanted to say the entire time, that's absolutely not true. You have no idea what you're talking about. Your news that you report, it's false, it's fake. And then we end up getting proven right on a story like that. We end up having video footage backing up the story that we reported last night, regardless of the Romanian governmental statement. There is a lot that we do on this channel to try and make sure that the news is as accurate as it can be. We do not go with wild goose chase assumptions. We don't work off of esoteric bullshit or whatever people are saying these days. We don't work off of any of that. We just work straight off of what we could see, straight off of what would be the most logical and easiest path for everyone to take. And usually it ends up being right. There have been times we've been wrong though, but usually it does end up being right. And I don't know what is up with people just... For some reason, we have a proven track record over 884 days that either our predictions are fairly accurate or the news we report is usually very factual and incredibly accurate with what it's portraying. And for some reason, there's always a group of people who detract against it. I'm not complaining to y'all, but it bewilders me why. Because you would think that at this point, people would have a little bit more credence for the channel. They go, well, they've had a fairly good track record. I mean, they get a lot of stuff pretty accurate so far. I mean, hell, not only that, we get to stories before everyone else does. We got to the story that Iran was firing missiles and drones at Israel 30 minutes before anyone in the mainstream or anyone else in the world was covering that story. We've gotten to, let's see, the story of the Crimean Bridge getting blown up twice before everyone else. We do our work on this channel. I don't mean to toot our own whistle, but we do. And I don't know why in the world some people like to try and act like this channel has no credibility. We're not the other channels that are just reading mainstream headlines off CNN or Fox and then repeating them on their YouTube channels. We're actually trying to run a YouTube channel here, a real news channel on YouTube, and actually get viable and accurate information. And so I hope that a lot of people see that. I know many of y'all see that, and y'all been saying that a lot in the chat here, but it always bewilders me, and everyone always says this too, and this is very true. You can get 1,000 positive comments, and one negative comment will be the one you remember. And that usually is true. It's just a psychological thing with how people work. But with a story like this, especially seeing the pushback that Matthew got on Twitter for putting that story out, because there was loads of people in the comments that just know everything, and were just saying to Matthew, oh no, the video footage that you're showing us is a complete fabrication or a lie, or it was edited or something, and it's not true, and they didn't fire from Romania. And the video footage is clearly showing it if you just do some simple geolocation and find some landmarks. But with that,
Oh man, those are just bots, really. You'll notice though that really starts happening in large numbers when the posts get a lot of impressions on them. Like that one had like 700,000 views on it or something like that. That post alone. So it's just bots coming in. They don't like to see it, and also there are some real people mixed in there as well. Like they just can't accept the fact that the video shows what it shows. They're like, it has to be fake because the government told me so. It's like, well, the governments lie. They always lie all the time, and it's like it wouldn't be shocking to know that they lied right now. Sometimes they lie in good faith. Believe it or not, there's actually a good faith lie on the part of a global government. And also, there's also bad faith lies as well, which is probably the one they do a lot more often, to be perfectly honest. But it's just bots, man. Don't worry about it. But anyways, we got it out. We got it out.
We got it. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're now moving on into Ukraine itself, because we have loads of news to cover. I mean, we really do. A lot of frontline footage today, especially from the Chasis Yar and Avdiivka directions, and it does seem as though things are pretty spicy today inside of Ukraine. But before we get into that, a lot of people have been talking about Iran a little bit, because this is something very interesting to know, is that while we did cover that Israel is conducting actions against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, for the second time in 24 hours, Iranian proxies have attacked U.S. forces in Syria near the Conoco oil fields. And a lot of people have been putting out their thoughts on this. And a lot of people are saying that Iran will continue escalating now. And of course, there's largely a lack of U.S. response at this moment, like usual. And so it is encouraging them to continue forward instead of trying to hold off or back off. Others are saying that Iran is just poking the United States. Some are saying that they're unsure and undecided. And others are saying that it seems like absolutely nothing. And it's not even worthwhile to talk about. But a lot of people have been throwing in their opinion on this, especially considering that the tensions are high in the area and the United States is now once again under fire pretty much every single day. A lot of people are putting in what the Iranians are going to do. And Matthew, what are people thinking, and what are you thinking as well?
All right, so after we've heard of the second major attack on U.S. forces in Syria near the Conoco gas fields, we're hearing now that Iranian proxies keep doing this over and over and over. And like I said, there's been 2 confirmed attacks in just 24 hours, and you'll barely hear anything about that on the news, interestingly enough. But it looks like 65% of the audience said Iran will continue escalating, while 28% said Iran simply poking the United States, testing us basically, and 3% said it seems like nothing to me. And on this one, I would say that's really indicative of Iran's aggression toward the United States. It seems to be ramping up over the past couple of weeks. The aggression from Iran seems to come in waves. It kind of died down there for a while, and also they kind of backed off Israel after they launched that massive rocket attack on their country. They kind of backed off a little bit, but now they seem to be getting right back to their old ways for whatever reason. That could coincide with the news about the nukes potentially being developed and finalized in the next week or so. That could be correlated to it, but there's simply no way to know in the public. So I'm with the 65%. I think Iran will continue escalating through their proxies, and these attacks will probably continue until something changes on the part of the U.S. response. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that this will most likely continue on with escalations in the area by the Islamic Republic of Iran. The United States isn't really doing anything to dissuade Iranian-backed groups or Iran itself from continuing attacks against U.S. forces, either in the Conoco fields near Area 52. Well, actually, no, not Tower 52. It's the Avdiivka garrison perimeter inside of Syria, inside of Iraq. We're not really doing anything to dissuade them from these attacks. We're largely showing that attacks can be tried, and as long as no real damage is done, everything's A-OK. And that's also how it was in the past. When 3 U.S. service members were killed at Tower 52 at Avdiivka, which is what I was getting confused with earlier with the wordage, that was when the United States conducted a limited bombing campaign in the Middle East against the proxies, but we didn't end up conducting any action against Iran itself. And that also, however, while we didn't end up conducting that action against Iran, it did lead to a general ceasefire in between the Iranian-backed proxies and the United States for a short while. But once again, we are doing nothing, and now they are once again seeing that they can escalate with Israel, and they can also escalate with Western forces and Western-aligned countries in the region, and nothing will really happen. I would have to say that's not really a good move. If I was the president of the United States, I would be making sure that U.S. interests are strongly supported in this area. Any attack on the United States, whether it be the nation itself, should be met with strong reprisals. For example, with this attempted attack on the Conoco fields, we should immediately begin bombing any camps that we can find of any proxy forces that are within the local area. That would be my general idea, because one thing I gotta say is that these proxy forces are not going to stop. Because we sit back and do nothing, it actually encourages them to keep going, because they just keep on getting chances again and again, with us not reacting, to come back the next day still alive and try again until they get to kill someone. That's going to be their entire goal. And so instead of sitting around and letting U.S. Forces and U.S. service members sit in the line of jeopardy and just let them do nothing until one of them gets injured and killed, I say let's send in the Air Force and let's just start bombing any of the local bases nearby until they learn their lesson and give up for a little bit. Or they'll start to fight back even harder, and then we can just continue to bomb them a little bit harder, and eventually either there'll be not enough of them left to really do anything, or they will generally give up because they won't want to get bombed any further. Because one thing, because a lot of people say different things about the approaches that the United States can take. One thing that is always very certain in the world is if you use a little bit of elbow grease, if you'll know what I mean, in some situations, usually things can improve, or at least people learn a lesson. Like, for example, let's take this. Let's say, I've never done this before, but let's take a hypothetical scenario. Let's say you're at a bar and you got some loudmouth near you running their mouth. Now, you could sit there and just look at them and say nothing. They're probably going to keep going until they eventually are able to do something to you and hurt you, or something along those lines, and then you're kind of screwed at that point. Or you can sock them in the mouth and teach them a lesson. They'll probably walk off after that. And so I would say the United States needs to take that kind of a loudmouth in the bar approach to the Middle East. We need to start socking people in the mouths in Syria, in Iraq, until people learn their lessons and they back off. Or if they're not learning,
certainly the current way that we're handling this is not working, because not only are the Iranian proxies starting to get stronger and stronger, now they're feeling emboldened to attack U.S. forces near the gas fields. Have you also heard as well that the really bad group, ISIS, I can't say the word altogether, YouTube gets upset about that, but that group is actually reforming and reconstituting once again. They're actually growing significantly and very rapidly. And that's why the FBI is concerned about potential attacks inside the United States, because that group, which is the really bad one that actually likes to carry out the attacks like that, is really starting to come back with force behind it. And there's really no sign of stopping that, because right now, nobody's really, like you said, taking the loudmouth bar brawler approach with this, because everyone kind of wants to de-escalate. And it's emboldening the terrorists in the Middle East to get even worse.
Yeah, and I would say, like I was saying a moment ago, at this point, it's time to stop the let's just sit back and wait and see what happens kind of an approach that we keep on taking. We need to start being a little bit more assertive. The United States is the strongest military power in the world. Everyone loves to say that here in America on every end, and then no one actually uses the boundless amount of military equipment and raw might that we have to deal with these people around the world. We need to start sending a message to these people, these proxy groups and the Iranians themselves, that this kind of stuff is not going to be tolerated anymore. America isn't leaving the region, and no matter what they want to do or what they want to say, nothing's going to change that. So either they can shut up and get along their way and stop messing with the United States, or they can end up not being around by tomorrow. They can pick their poison. And that would be my kind of a ultimatum to them. Because I have a feeling either they're going to decide to end up becoming martyrs for their cause, or they're going to give up. And there's a pretty decent chance that they probably give up before they ended up becoming martyrs to their cause. Because everyone wants to be a martyr until they're about to become one. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion, with what's going on in the region. But with that, it's time for us to move on back up into Ukraine. And before we get on into the Frontline news, we do have a couple of interesting questions. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so we do have a couple of very interesting questions tonight. And up first, we have a massive super chat from Sergeant Carnage, the longtime channel legend. And he threw in a $50 donation. And huge shout out to you, Sergeant Carnage, for that very generous support. He said, a late B-Day present from Matt. Oh, thank you very much. He said, question from the chat, if you'd like.
And of course we'd like. And I gotta thank you so much for the support, Sergeant Carnage. And thank you for the late birthday present for Enforcer Matt. It's 4 days after Matthew's birthday. There's still happy birthdays coming in. That's really neat. And I gotta say, thank you so much once again for support, Sergeant Carnage. Thank you for giving Matthew a little birthday present for the birthday that he had. He's 24
it's the
now.
week of Matt.
It's the summer of Matt. It's the summer of George. But beyond that, I gotta say, thank you once again for the birthday wishes to Enforcer Matt. He is incredibly appreciative, incredibly grateful for that. And I thank you as well for supporting this channel and helping to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you who enjoyed this channel and wanted to keep it running, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so a huge thanks to you. And of course, we're going to be getting a live chat in your honor. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so let's get a really juicy live chat question in honor of Sergeant Carnage and the late B-Day present, and thank you very much once again. And this live chat question goes to Andres W., who says, what do you think it'll take for Russia to attack a NATO country?
That's a good question. As far as what would it take, it really takes nothing. It just takes them having the willpower in their minds to go, okay, we're all going to die, let's do it, and then start a war. But if we're talking about actual diplomatic avenues where things could fall apart to lead to a war, possibly the intervention of NATO forces inside of Ukraine. The Russians accidentally end up hitting and killing a few of them, or deliberately hit and kill a few of them. Western forces move into Ukraine en masse at this point, as that would be considered a provocation. The Russians would then begin to build up forces on the area around the Baltics, trying to get ready for some sort of a spearhead into Eastern Europe. And then they would maybe see something that looks like the West is about to kick off a preemptive attack on Russia, and that would be what would start a preemptive attack of their own, even quicker than what they believe the Western preemptive attack would be. That would be a possible scenario that would begin a war in the area. Another possible scenario is that Western war support continues and the Russian situation becomes so desperate on a military and diplomatic level that they decide that a full-on confrontation with NATO, a very limited ground war, when I say limited in its scope, in the area of Eastern Europe, could be launched to try and force NATO to the negotiation table. Of course, everyone knowing that nuclear war would be on the horizon if the conventional war continued, and they could try and get some sort of concessions about Ukraine through that war. That would be another avenue where the Russians could try and start a conventional war. There are millions of hypothetical scenarios that we could come up with. Like there's, for example, another one where, for example, another Crocus City Hall incident occurs, but this time the Russians are actually able to iron it down as some sort of a pro-Western or pro-Ukrainian group. The Russians end up using either chemical agents or some other kind of banned weapons on Ukraine. The Western world takes a massive stance against that, begins to openly condemn Russia, and then starts to openly speak of military intervention in Ukraine to stop this war from unfolding, because generally the world would be in joint condemnation of the Russian Federation at that point. The Russian Federation, of course, seeing that things are going against them and that the West is pretty much getting ready to fight them in Ukraine, could start another conventional war that way. Usually, most of it would be based off of the escalations continuing and the Russians decide to try and beat us to the punch of starting a conventional war, but those are some scenarios that I can come up with in my head where things could continue to just degrade and devolve until there was a conventional war going on. So I hope that that answers the question at least the best I can, Andreas W., because that is probably some of the few best scenarios that I can come up with right off the top of my head to explain how a war could begin in between NATO and Russia. And let's see, what else could there be? Oh, here's another one. The West hosts major war games in the area of Eastern Europe. The Russians believe that the war game is a disguise for some kind of a massive buildup on the Russian border to begin a preemptive attack. They then start to attack the training force. That is another one. That's actually one of the most likely ones that we would see, because much like the Russians said they were only conducting military exercises around the Ukrainian border before they invaded as a guise to build up their forces and make it sound like a plausible explanation, that is kind of how everyone does it nowadays in the modern world. Is everyone says that it's some sort of a military exercise or some form of training, so that way there is a plausible explanation for the massive buildup of troops that would be occurring. So I hope that's all the scenarios that I can think of right now, and I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you so much once again for support, Sergeant Carnage, and helping this channel to keep on running and sponsoring that live chat. I'd say this a couple of times these days on most streams, but I do have to hit it home that Sergeant Carnage, it is folks like you who help to make this channel possible. You run this thing ad-free and sponsor-free every single night. We actually do not make a single cent or a single dime on this channel beyond super chats. That's the only way we're able to keep the lights on behind the scenes and keep this channel running. And I got to give you a huge thanks, Sergeant Carnage, for supporting this channel. thousands of people, tens of thousands of people actually, get to watch this channel absolutely free every single day. And that is the way we hope that many people can watch this channel, because I never want people to have to pay either with their time by watching an ad, or either by this channel becoming a sellout and getting sponsors, long-term sponsors that will start to dictate the way that we cover news. They get to watch this channel completely free of those things, and we get to say exactly what we want to say on air, and we get to present the kind of news to all of y'all that not only we want to put out, but y'all also want to hear as well. And it is folks like you who support this channel and enjoy it enough to find it worthwhile to support that make that a reality for us. Tens of thousands of people have already been here tonight. 32,000 views so far. And out of those 32,000 people, and let me see what the exact number is, there have been roughly 11 people who have thrown in a super chat and supported this channel. Those 11 people right now are making this stream possible for 32,000 people to have watched so far. And that's why we give so much airtime to super chatters, and that's why we thank them so greatly, because y'all make this news coverage possible for everyone who's watching this channel right now. The tens of thousands of people don't have to throw in a single second of time to watch an ad, listen to a single sponsorship, or sit there and pay some sort of subscription fee to hear this news. They get to get on live immediately, no delay, absolutely free, and watch this channel. And it's thanks to folks like you, Sergeant Carnage, who are the few that support this channel to help to make this ad-free, sponsor-free channel a reality for so many people every single day. And so a huge thank you to you once again for that support. Massive appreciation. Thank you once again for being a channel legend as well. And thank you for the birthday present for Matt. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of this segment.
All right, and this one goes to Live, Laugh, Toaster, Bath. And huge shout out to you once again for that support of a $31 donation, and we appreciate it very much. They said, "Good day, Enforcers. We rabbit holed yesterday, which of course I enjoyed, but missed the remainder of the following. Curious to know what contribution has been made by Australia in terms of military and financial to Ukraine. And a live chat question, please."
And that is a very good question, actually, Live, Laugh, Toaster, Bath. And I'm going to see if I can find an answer here. So we're going to the Australian government's defense website, because sadly I don't know exactly what Australia has given off the top of my head, because it's hard to do that for each country, because there's so many that have given different amounts. But according to, let's see here, what the announcement of Australia is at the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Let's see, as part of this, the latest military, okay, come on, give us a number, jeez. Just going to sit there and say, we've given them anti-tank weapons. It's like, how many? Like 3? 30,000? What? Like, can we get a number? Let's see here. So it looks as though, according to them, the overall assistance that Australia has given to Ukraine has been $1.3 billion over the course of the whole war. That's their most recent figure. Sadly, I can't get an exact breakdown of how much equipment has been given, how many anti-tank weapons, how many vehicles, how many small arms, how much ammunition. Sadly, I can't get numbers like that, because it appears that the Australian Ministry of Defense isn't publishing those figures for us to be able to get a good idea. But putting it all together, they do say that it is around $1.3 billion, which is a pretty okay chunk, but to be quite honest, compared to others, it's not a lot. Many countries in Europe have already given at least several tens of billions of dollars in support to Ukraine, and I believe the United States has thundered its way well over 100 billion. It's somewhere around 130 billion, I believe, that we've given in support to Ukraine. So if we were to say that the United States has given $130 billion of support, that means that Australia has only given about 1% of the support that the United States has given Ukraine over the course of the war. But while that sounds like something to detract against Australia with, there are some very important reasons why that support would be low. One, the Australian economy is a lot smaller than the United States. Let me go pull up the Australian GDP, and so that way we can take a look. Australian GDP. And so actually their GDP is not that bad. They have an economy half the size of India's at 1.7 trillion. That's actually very considerable for their population. Let me go get
Man, imagine you put those quokers to work, you get some money.
Man, I'm telling you. But let's see here. What is their population? 26 million. 26 million people with a $1.7 trillion GDP. What is the population of Texas? Hang on. Population of Texas, because I think it's similar. 30 million. And what is Texas GDP? Texas GDP. So Texas actually has a GDP of 2.6 trillion. So Texas economically is about $1 trillion more than Australia at this point annually. That's actually pretty wild. I didn't know that. I thought they'd be similar. So actually, put this out there for y'all. This is pretty crazy. The state of Texas in America has a larger GDP than South Korea and the Russian Federation, and Italy, and also Spain, and also Poland, and also Ukraine, and also, let's see, who else would there be? Also Canada. That's actually pretty wild, man. One U.S. state is Texas is an economic powerhouse. California is as well. Man, Matthew just loves Texas. Huge shout out to the Texans.
Everything's bigger in Texas, they say. It's true though. Like it's crazy. They're very industrious, and also with all the companies moving to Texas, that greatly increases their GDP. Like for example, Tesla's moved there. You got Texas Instruments, which is massive. You've got SpaceX, which is going there. Massive companies all over the place in Texas, and also it's a very geographically large state too, so that helps it out as well.
And also with all the new people moving in, which many of y'all probably heard about, people actually add a lot to the GDP value of an area because every single person is a worker, and every single worker is adding a specific amount of money into the total GDP of that region. So say 30,000 new people move into Texas, say, that means that 30,000 new individuals, 30,000 new units are contributing annually to GDP growth. And that's why population growth is a really big thing for a lot of countries. That's why Japan right now, man, they're over there going, there's not enough children, because they're like, we're going to start losing all like the massive worker pool that we have right now that makes the GDP and makes the quality of life in Japan a reality. We're going to start declining in number, and that means their GDP is also going to start shrinking as well, just because there's not enough productive working age people in Japan to be able to make that possible. Well, that's a whole rabbit hole. But anyways, beyond that, Australia does have a fairly small GDP, so sending 1.3 billion for Australia compared to the 130 trillion for the United States is a very big different ballgame. On top of that, geographically, Australia is a fairly isolated country. It's literally in the pretty much the bottom corner of the world, if you want to call it that. And not only that, it does not have the same kind of power projection abilities and supply abilities that the United States has to make our supply link to Ukraine very easy and very possible. With Australia, it's a lot different. So 1.3 billion from Australia, in my opinion, it's not that bad. I actually wouldn't expect Australia or New Zealand to really give anything to the war, considering that they are pretty much on their own in the area of the Western Pacific. And, well, actually, yeah, it would be the Western Pacific. And they're also having to deal with the Chinese, which is something that has been concerning the Australians, the Americans, and everyone else that is in the Western Pacific, Western sphere for quite some time at this point. But I hope that that does address that the best I can. And thank you so much once again for a very interesting live chat. And I hope you all like that little rabbit hole. I didn't know that we were going to start talking about Texas. But another thing that y'all might want to know, and let me go here. California is the biggest state in the United States by GDP. This single state has a GDP of nearly $4 trillion at a growth rate of 6.1%. per year. That's actually a very high GDP growth rate, because other countries like China being one of the most fastest and rapidly growing economies in the world, has gotten up to record numbers of around 6 to 7%, meaning that California on a annual basis at this point is growing GDP figures wise about as fast as China is by the percentage figures. But California is an incredibly big country as well. California GDP-wise is bigger than France, the United Kingdom, and just a little bit smaller than Germany and Japan. So you can kind of get an idea. California is also one of the biggest and most important states economically in the United States, also population-wise as well. But anyways, moving on from that, very interesting stuff to talk about, and I hope you all have enjoyed that little rabbit hole about population and GDP figures. But with that, it is time for us to get on to the final question of this segment, and then we're going to be moving right on into the news. And Matthew, what do we have?
All right, and the final super chat of the segment is going to go to Andy L., who's another longtime channel legend. He's back once again, and this time he puts in a $50 donation, and thank you very much, good sir, for that support. And also, let me get rid of this bot real quick. I just saw him in here. No, just spewing that Russian propaganda. Get out of here, bot. But be gone. But anyways. Man, the bots are sick, I'm telling you what. But Andy says, it sounds like El Brisket needs to have a talk with some folks. And you guys are solid with the LSA total 100% support. And I just got here and take a question from from the chat. And Texas is crowded.
And Texas is crowded? I would have to say Texas probably is crowded because Matthew went out to Dallas one time. Only Nixon can go to China. Only Matthew can go to Dallas. But he went to Dallas one time, and they were saying when they came back that everything out there is growing at a rapid speed. Apparently, from what I've heard, it may have been growing too rapidly because now the prices of houses there have rapidly dropped since they were looking. But
not anymore. Those house prices are actually dropping right now by hundreds of thousands because there's a lot of houses on the market and they can't get rid of them for some reason.
That's literally what I was saying right there, Matthew. I was like, they were expensive, but now they're dropping. And then you're like, actually, that's not the case. They were dropping. And I was like, wait a minute, that's what I was saying. I was like, oh no. But beyond that, Texas is rapidly growing in population numbers. Let me actually show you all that. Population of Texas, 30 million. So, this is the growth rate of Texas right here over the years. Good Lord, look at that, man. At the turn of the millennium, they were at almost 21 million. They have grown at 10 million people in 24 years.
That's quite a lot. And Florida, and also, wow, that's a huge dip up there at the top of California's numbers. Like it looks small right there, but that's a big trend going down.
Yeah, that's really a massive downtrend because if you look at California's average yearly growth, it was considerable. I mean, they were outpacing Texan growth for a very long time, but now it does appear that growth is completely stopped, and it is actually reversing. A lot of people appear to be leaving California. Many people have heard about that. It's the exodus from California because some things aren't really working in California the way they used to, so things are getting a little bit either undoable or intolerable. A couple of the things that a lot of people know about is the insane rent rates in California. It is pretty much impossible to afford rent anywhere in California because the cost of rent per month is literally unbearable. And that's also led to a lot of people becoming just homeless and being financially destitute. And California also has one of the largest populations per 100,000 of homeless people in the United States as well as a result. They also have a whole bunch of other issues as well, but it's generally culminated in a lot of people apparently finding California to be unbearable, and they're now starting to leave California to travel to other states, one of those actually being Texas. Another interesting thing I gotta say is that the unemployment rate in Texas is very low at 3.9%. For y'all to know, a healthy unemployment rate is somewhere around 5% or a little bit below that. So 3.9% is actually optimal. You really can't get better than that. So that's pretty impressive right there, I gotta say. And also their motto is friendship.
Friendship, yes. They're big friends with those big companies. I'm telling you what, that's good for them. Is the GDP is really good. The quality of life appears to be good. I will say the cost of living there looks a little bit above the average, but you get what you pay for out there. You get nice parks and recreation. It looks beautiful and stuff like that. Man, there's another bot coming in here. What the hell's going on? They're like flooding in tonight.
Man, where is it? I want to see it. Oh, there it is. That was a funny one. But also, man, I was like, what is the motto of Alabama? Because Texas is literally just friendship. And it's like, well, that's kind of nice. Apparently, we have some very ominous one. We dare defend our rights.
That's we dare defend our rights.
I don't I'm not really getting the sentence structure there. You know, like
sounds Alabama.
We dare damn defend our rights, boy. It's like I don't know what the hell that really means. But beyond that, what other mottos? Georgia, wisdom, justice, moderation. Alaska, north to the future. Arkansas, regnant populace. What's the actual English version of that? The people rule.
The people rule in Arkansas.
Huh. Let's see.
That's good.
All right. That sounds kind of commie, though. You know, the People's Party. It's like, wait a minute. It's like Arkansas's a bunch of damn commies, and their flag is red. They're commies, confirmed. Anyone from Arkansas, y'all are now Reds. But let's see here. What is the motto?
We dare defend our rights,
man.
Don't forget it,
man. You know the motto of Florida is just "In God We Trust." That's like the most bland motto ever. It's literally just like the federal Like, it was more so like the Treasury Department's motto on the coins. Like, okay, wait a minute, hang on. The
What's the
motto
motto
of
of New York?
Yeah, I was thinking that too, dude. So let's see here. Excelsior. That's it. What the hell are they? Superheroes? Excelsior. It's like, what the hell? What the hell does that mean? Like, dude,
Yeah, sound like New York's like Decelsior these days. I'm not seeing no Excelsior right now from what I'm hearing.
okay, so what is the motto of California? Like, I'm so sorry, y'all. This is a little rabbit hole here, but what the hell?
Eureka.
It's Eureka. Which means I have found it in Greek.
Oh, I found it. I found it. I can't live. I can't afford life. I found it
Man,
right here.
Man, dude, I was looking around San Francisco the other day, and whenever I would find a used needle or defecation on the streets, I go Eureka! So I was literally just going down the street going Eureka, Eureka. But anyways, beyond that, very interesting motto for the state of California. I got to say that the big states kind of have underwhelming mottos, like Florida, Texas, New York, and California. Like, I don't know. And then Alabama just has a goofy one. Like, what kind of a sentence structure was that? We dare defend our rights. What the hell does that? Anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that rabbit hole well. But still, I say thank you so much once again for support, Andy L. Very interesting motto for the state of Texas with friendship. Texas is getting a little crowded though, and I would have to say, you go talk to them. Sometimes I get a little bit annoyed with how things go, and sometimes I talk about it a little bit on stream. I'm very sorry about that because I don't mean to sit there and rant, and it's certainly not directed at anyone watching the stream. But whenever I see a whole bunch of know-it-alls on Twitter say something that literally contradicts the very thing that you were seeing with your own eyes, it always blows me away that people can be that dumb. Just to not sugarcoat it, it really does blow me away that people can be that ignorant and unintelligent. And everyone wants to be intelligent, but they're not. And so what they do is they just go, well, so-and-so said it's not real. Like, you can watch like a video. You can watch a video, undoctored and unadulterated, that shows something actually happening. And we could say, look, this video is actually showing that happening. Like, that happened. And then people will come in, and because they read some article from like the Washington Post that said, no, it didn't. And they go, no, it didn't. It's like, no, you're stupid. It's like, I'm sorry, but I don't even know where the hell you're coming from. You don't have sense. You either didn't watch the video, or you watched the video and you're so ignorant to extrapolate anything from it, you just decide to go with what everyone else was saying and hop on the bandwagon. It's like, like the Lee Spring Army isn't about that, hopping on bandwagons and all that garbage. But I still thank you so much for the support, Andy L. And you go talk to him. I would like to have you speak a piece of your mind. And also, thank you so much once again for saying the LSA is behind us 100%. I love to know that, because if there's any group that does appreciate the hard work and effort that we put into this news, it is y'all. And so thank you so much once again. We will make sure to take a live chat question. And so what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so the live chat question here is going to go to Inflamed. He said, would you prefer to see combat emus or medical wallabies? I'd prefer combat emus, personally. I think that would be very interesting to see. Could you imagine an emu holding an AK? Could you imagine that? That could be tremendous.
Man, dude, man, imagine an emu like going to war, man. They would get slaughtered. They actually didn't, in case you all know. There was a war that happened in Australia called the Emu War, which is where the Australian government went to war against the emu bird because the emu was eating farmers' crops. So they sent the army out to go kill them, and they ended up not killing any of them, really, and it ended up being a complete failure. And the Australian farmers kept on just saying to the government, well, just give us the guns and we'll kill them, like when we see them. And so the government went, no, the farmers are too stupid to shoot these emus, so we'll do it. And then they failed, and then the emus kept on plaguing the farmers for decades. But anyways, I would say an emu in a war, that would be quite interesting to see. Put a little helmet on that thing and give it a gun, because it already won one war, it can win one again. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. Thank you once again for the support and sponsoring that live chat, Andy L. And with that, we're now moving on into our location unknowns, where we got to see a MiG-29 being outfitted with glide bombs. These are GBU-39 SDBs, and you can actually see them right down there. Pretty cool to see. I like to see them. They're actually mounted in tandems or groups of two. You can actually see two of them up here on the front of the pylon, and then two of them back there behind it. So this MiG-29 is probably carrying about 8 of these GBU-39s, a considerable amount, and hopefully doing good work. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see that apparently the Russians are going back to the days of the pirates. Yar! Man the cannons, boy! We've got a ship carrying fine Peruvian blow. Yar!
There's a cannon?
Yar, boy, it's a cannon. Or something like that.
That's a junker.
It is. It is. Because, once again, like the other one we saw, it is a BMP-1 gun that they put onto some sort of a makeshift caisson, if you want to call it that, and they turn it into a cannon. Like, it's like an infantry assault gun. Really freaking ugly and stupid and really outdated. And I don't think these things are ever going to work, but, you know, the Russians got him out there, and they're going to be getting some of that fine Peruvian blow. But moving on from that and into our next bit, we also got to see the 225th Brigade of the Ukrainian Marines, actually the Separate Assault Battalion, training with some German mortars. Look at them go. They're learning how to drive them mortars. I like how the Rheinmetall company, Matthew, clearly put Rheinmetall on the front of this APC like it was the Ford logo. Let's see. Oh, wait, hang on. We missed it. Right there.
Oh, yeah, they did. They stuck a badge on the front of it. It's kind of weird.
Dude.
Also, by the way, when you really think about it, this thing's called a German martyr. The last time there were martyrs in Germany, that wasn't that good.
But let me go pull that up, because I think in German, let's see here. Hang on. Hold up.
And we just sent Ukraine the wrong thing. A whole bunch of German martyrs.
Let's see. You know, Matthew, you got a good point. I'm trying to figure out what that name really means in Germany. So apparently, Schützenpanzer Martyr 1, which is Schützen, carrying armored fighting vehicle, and apparently armor in German is Martin. So it's supposed to be like a play on the word armor.
Huh, well, I guess that's better than the other one, because you don't want to send a whole fleet of German martyrs, because that could go sideways.
Dude, you're going to have someone out there going, "Geschlägt bei Leitmann in die Deutschen Volker," and then something, something like that. It's going to be, whoa, hey, we don't need that. But we can see them once again climbing around on it. We can see someone talking about it, driving it.
Also, do you remember when a particular somebody out there said something about, you don't want to rearm Germany? You remember what they did back in the day? Remember when someone said that? I was like, well, I'm like, you know, Germany is obviously much more reformed now, like by worlds and leaps and bounds. But it's like, I mean, that's an interesting perspective.
Hell, I'd rearm them. I mean, like, you know, think about it. When they were against us in both world wars, they did pretty damn good. Now they're on our side. What if we rearmed them again? What could they do now? They could probably do a lot.
Just keep them happy this time, and, you know, none of that crazy stuff, that weird stuff this time.
Well, I mean, they won't do any of that crazy stuff, man, because any German, you could sit there and go, "Hey, what did you do from 1939 to 1940? We're so sorry. We'll never do it again." Like, we swear. It's like,
mentions the war.
Yeah, don't mention the war. But, man, oh, dude, that Monty, oh, well, not Monty Python, that Faulty Tower skit was so good, man, because he sat there at some point and said, "We strings them up with piano," something like that. It's like, damn, it's like they were pulling the shot. They were not pulling the shots in that episode. It was rough. And we see the
guy's so proud of this thing too. He's like, "Look at this! It's a great thing. It works so well in the battle. It goes through, oh, literally, like we're taking it underwater."
Man, they're taking it through the swimming pool. I really like the Martyrs, and I also like the Martyrs because they can carry a Milan ETGM with them, which is really nice because that means that every single infantry fighting vehicle has a little bit of an anti-tank ability, which is very important in the modern day. Also,
we
I like
to take the tank into the water and test it under the aqua.
We are going to take the tank swimming, something like that.
It's buoyant.
We
It's
see
a float.
everyone's a fan of this thing, man. It looks like everyone's really enjoying it, and we love to see
It's
it.
very flat on the top of it too, like a nice surface to sit on or eat on.
I wouldn't eat on it, but, but yeah. And then we can see these guys hanging out near their MI8. Really neat. Pick goes hard. Feel free to screenshot. Moving on from that and into our next bit, we also got to see the 35th Marines in training in these pictures, dismounting from a BMP-1 in a field of what looks kind of like lavender. Really nice looking. We then see them posting up in front of that BMP-1. This guy's got a custom kitted out AK. I like it. Some trench training. Some more standing near the BMP, looking pretty cool. Let's see here. That AK has had a bad paint job put on it. You can kind of tell. And then also, that's the end of the pictures, actually. But still, really nice to see them training in the 35th Marines and hopefully getting ready for some more frontline service. Moving on from that, we also got to see the Russian casualty report for the day. And, oh, it was good.
My goodness, 7 Bobcats. Whoa, that's crazy. That is crazy. Also, man, these bots are getting tremendously bad on the Kyiv Independence post. Like, we need to go back to the Bobcat post again, like the memes of Bobcats to try to, like, drown out the bots, because this is getting out of hand. I'm telling you. But 7 Bobcats, that's tremendous. Also, though, I will say this. They were below the 1,000 troop threshold today. Only 950.
Also, Matthew, the bots can't even spell. Oh, my God, what a bunch of leers. Wait a minute, hang on. It says, oh my God, what a bunch of O'Lears. It's like, what the hell is that, an Irish guy, O'Lear? It's like, what the hell? But, yeah, he can't even spell. Let's see. He's got a picture of that guy from Breaking Bad. Like, it's like, who is this guy? But anyways, beyond that, it's a bot. But anyways, moving on from that, 950 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 11 APCs, 56 supply trucks, 7 main battle tanks, 36 artillery pieces, 73 drones, a very considerable number, and 7 Bobcat skid steers. The day was very good, and it appears that the Russians are once again losing quite a large number of people. Quite a large number of O'Lears. But moving on from that, we're about to see where all those O'Lears were cooking. And we can see over here in Shebekino, a Ukrainian drone actually hit a telephone pole. Oh! I don't think it was supposed to hit the telephone pole, but it looks like they veered up right into it and blew up. So,
wow, it held together good. It didn't even phase it really. It just hit it and it was fine.
Man, the Virgin Russian tank versus the Chad Russian electrical line, like that, just no damage. That thing would have blown up a tank if it hit it. This thing only, like, sheared off some of the rubber on the electrical line. It's like, that is a little weird. You know what I mean? Like, you know, Russian tank can't resist that, but the electrical line can. We also got to see a Buke covered in camo, because while that electrical line will survive, the Buke will not. So the Russians are trying to protect them a little bit more. Probably will not end up working. Meanwhile, down in the area of Vovchansk, we did get to see the 95th hitting some Russian vehicles around this area. That sounds ominous. Anyways, we can see the Russians right there in their vehicle, the burning vehicles.
That's like the new Jaws theme song for the Ukrainians.
Dude, you know what that sounds like? That sounds like a ship horn, you know, like, you know, something like that.
It sounds just like the Titanic before it went down.
Man, you know what it really sounds like? It sounds like, oh man, if you really slowed it down and like really boosted the bass on it, like you just sit there, like, it's Hot Dog Man. He's coming into port in the fog, or something like that.
Oh goodness, that's a stretch on that one.
Yeah, a little bit, but we will make it work, and we can see them cooking more Russians.
Oh man, you know what else is cooking except for the Russians? My brain cells. Oh man.
Oh man. I don't know a damn thing, but I'm gonna get on YouTube and pretend like I do. Oh man.
Oh man. How's that pivot to US politics going? Tell me.
His 3 live viewers will tell you. Like they'll be like,
they'll loudly tell you.
You'll see one comment and it'll be like, "It's good, you bastard," or something like that. But anyways, moving on from that and down on the southern end, we also get to see that the 36 Marines are actually using shells from India. Very interesting to see. 125 millimeter shells provided by India to Ukraine, and the Ukrainians are using them. pretty cool to see. Like, I've never seen Indian shells ever being used or provided before until now. So that's actually really neat to see and good to know. And moving on from that and out of the Vovchansk area and further down the line and into Krasnoyarsk, we also got to see the Ukrainian 44th Battalion, the Ronin, chasing down some Russian vehicles. Do y'all have music? Yes, y'all do.
Very peaceable right before the attack. It's a nice, good day out here. Just a little drone cruising down the road looking for trouble. Oh, and there's a little Russian right there, peeping right down the road. Look at him. This is not going to be... Oh, you got the band symbol on him. Hey, look, it's the Scooby-Doo van, Vovchansk.
Like, Zoink Scoop, we're gonna get blown up. Rat Raggy. And they did get blown up. And now we can see them moving around again, looking for some more Russians. We can actually see some dragon's teeth over there on the side of the road.
It was a great day in the field, but for Russia, it was a terrible day. Eternal memory, eternal flight.
Oh, that was a lot of...
A whole lot of trouble.
Eternal flight, brothers, as the fuel tank combusts just from the drone flying near the car.
Oh, look at it. Look at it go, man.
Oh, dude, it's kicking. Oh, it tried to juke it.
All two cylinders are firing at full speed.
Oh, they hit the brakes.
Full brakes.
Oh, they're making a bail. Dude, it's a lot of Neva.
That's actually
Get him.
Smart. That's actually the smartest thing they could have done, really.
This drone is adamant on getting this Neva. Oh, right in the windshield.
Oh, got it.
And we can see another one here. This was going to be a head-on. Oh, they veered out of the way. It was a juke. Wait a minute, they went off-road. They're careening off the street. Dude, they're not like those other guys, though, that floored it into a ditch and literally exploded on the spot, like, as soon as they went off-road.
They got some really bad signal out here, but they're still trying to, make it through it.
Damn, what the hell happened there? Okay.
And we should be using the Bing receivers on this one.
Man, they just hit a UAZ 469 right there. Nice. But man, there's the Ronin. Beautiful to see. They got that samurai up there. They be like a samurai a little bit, But moving on from that and further down the line, we also got to see near Chasis Yar some Ukrainian units preparing for patrol. And I just wanted to show this because we got a nice AR down there of a sort. I don't really know what kind. We got a ammo canister for an RPK, which is right over there. We've got a law, I believe, an M72 law. This guy is playing around with an M67 grenade.
That's when you know you're a real one, when your toys become grenades. They start flinging around a grenade, talking about, I'm going to tell you go this way while you're holding a deadly weapon in your hand, just like casually.
Man, he's like, Southside 99, we the real ones, like we the best, DJ Khaled or something like that. But moving on from that, we also got to see a burned out and destroyed BMD-4. It burned so badly, the turret literally just melted into the insides of the BMD. It's sticking out right there. Pretty cool to see. Like, you don't see him burn that nicely. But the heat got so hot, it actually melted the aluminum frame of this thing, and the turret literally just sunk down into the chassis of the vehicle. Really cool. Moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see a Ukrainian drone flying into a building. Very masterfully. And they're just trying to make their way over to the Russians that are right there. And the Russians like, oh shit, it made it in. And he's like, how in the world did that happen?
Also, by the way, I just want to say this real quick. I saw one of the German viewers in the live chat. I just want to make sure you don't take this the wrong way. Our jokes about Germany and, the history and things like that, we don't mean that seriously. Like, I'm honestly a huge fan of Germany in the modern day, so don't take it to heart. It's just a joke. I just want to make that clear because it might have come off maybe like we were like making fun of Germany or something like that, or saying something about the German people, but that's not what I'm saying whatsoever. So don't take it to heart, please.
Yeah, I mean, like, Germany's pretty cool. We make jokes about everyone. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And also, let's see. Who was saying that? I need to find that to make sure, get the context here. Oh yeah. I'm so sorry. We don't mean it like I saw who was saying that. We don't mean that to detract against Germany or make it sound like Germany is a nation of crazy people. We just kid around like that from time to time, kind of like we kid around on Americans. or British people here and there. We just kid around on the Germans that way. But Germany is a pretty neat country that has a lot of interesting stuff going on with it. Like, for example, Matthew likes BMW. That sounds so trivial, but Matthew really does like BMW. One of the main reasons
Yes,
is because
and I actually learned German as well, so and all that good stuff.
and also like Matthew likes BMW. I actually like the Ice 3, which is a high-speed train that is used inside of Germany. I just think it looks neat.
That is good. ICE, like immigrations and customs enforcement.
Dude, if ice whipped up in this thing, man, it'd be over. Like, it would be over. Like, I don't know what they would be doing in one, but it would be over. But dude, you
Chris
have.
Bradford said M3. Yes, I do actually like that. I can't sadly get one right now. Probably won't, actually probably a long time before I can ever get one. But the M3 is one of my favorite cars of all time, specifically the older ones, the older generation ones. They're actually some of the first generations. A very nice car.
Also, one other thing, I want to show you this, Matthew. This is what the interior looks like behind the driver's cab. The driver's cab is behind this glass partition right here. So he just opens up the door, sits down right in front of you, and starts running the train.
Oh, well, yeah, that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it looks so clean. Like, I really love the Ice 3s. I think they're really cool. The Ice 1s are neat. Like, some people have, like, a special place for the Ice 1, which is this one. This was the first high-speed train they had. I don't really like them that much. But I think we actually brought one of these to America to test it out to see what a high-speed train would work like here in America. And some of its design elements, if I remember correctly, went into making the Amtrak Acela. But that one's now being retired for the Avelia Liberty. But anyways, with that, I hope that does add in that we do like Germany. We're just kidding around about Germany. Germany's got a lot of neat stuff going on for it, especially in the modern day. And moving on from that, we got to see some fighting near Touretsk.
Touretsk.
Oh man, they got that wizard music playing. Blithfa.
Got the devil in the background too.
Man, they sat there and had that trap beat start, and then they just heard Braptis or something like that. It's like, what the hell? It's like, it doesn't really fit.
If you didn't know any better, you'd think you were looking at a really like realistic airsoft park or something.
Yeah. Also, so I said, don't get us started on folks from Bama. Listen, you couldn't tell me something that I already haven't heard a million times or said to myself about Alabama in the mirror, okay? Like, I joke about my home state. I love it to pieces, but there's a lot to make fun of Alabama for, like many places.
Next to Alabama, it's really in the United States, it's California and Alabama that are by far the most stereotyped and made fun of states ever. Some things are actually probably justified, to be perfectly honest, and obviously I live in Alabama, so I have a right to say that. But some things are actually justified that y'all say, but a lot of the stuff's just a bunch of crap that people came up with and they just ran with it. But it doesn't offend me whatsoever. When I hear it, I'm just like, oh, there's the same line over and over again, but it's just whatever.
Yeah, I don't, yeah, and also I don't get too offended because it's just a bit of banter. It's a bit of cheeky banter. No one really, oh wow, they're lighting that room up. But it's just a bit of cheeky banter. People just say it to joke around and get a little laugh. And you're not going to be getting a laugh at my expense, trash talking Alabama, because we joke about some of those things as well, and we are from Alabama. Everyone jokes about Alabama living in Alabama. And that's one thing I don't get as well, on a quick side note, when we make fun of other places in America, because I know that everyone in America makes fun of where they're from. Like, people living in Detroit make fun of Detroit with each other. I know that, because that's how it works here in Alabama. Alabamians, who are all born and raised here in Alabama like we were, will make fun of the state just because. And I know that people in Detroit are doing that too. And then we'll make fun of Detroit. And then the people from Detroit, man, then they want to go, hey, don't talk about our city. And it's like, what the hell? Y'all are joking about it. I know y'all are. Don't lie.
That's when I get real suspicious. When people get defensive about it, I'm like, I just hear the stuff and I'm like, oh, whatever. Like, the people make those, the infamous Alabama incest comment and stuff like that. It's like, oh gosh, it's like that same one again. And it's like, I don't get defensive about it. I'm like, oh, whatever. Say what you want. It's just that, fake stereotype or whatever. But the Detroit folks in Detroit, then when you say something like, man, I don't know about Detroit, there's a lot of stuff going on there, like violence and stuff. They're like, what? Don't say that. Don't say it. It's like, now that makes me suspicious. It's like, if you're that defensive about it, it's like, it must be true.
Man. Let's see. I'm trying to think of some of the jokes. Let's see.
Also,
Usually,
Florida is a stereotype state as well. The Florida man. That's the weird thing about Florida is it's stereotyped because of the Florida man, like that no like kind of unhinged and no filter and stuff like that. But that's really the only stereotype. Like in Florida, there's really not a lot of them.
there really isn't. And also, we got to see the Radro unit targeting and taking out Russian artillery today as well. But yeah, the state of Florida has a stereotype. Let me think of some states that have specific stereotypes. New York State, California, Texas, Florida, Louisiana, Alabama, West Virginia, Michigan, Illinois, mostly because of Chicago. And then the Midwest, like the Midwest has a stereotype, but it's not specific to each state. It's just kind of like the entire region. And that's really it that I can think of off the top of my head. Like there are other stereotypes. Like every place in America has a stereotype, and everyone has like a butt of jokes about a place. But the really big ones that everyone knows in America would be those. Because man, you know what I'm talking about with the Midwesterners, man. Like oh, you betcha, that kind of stuff. That Midwestern accent thing. Like, oh yeah, oh, you want some sody pop? It's like, what is this? The 50s? It's a Coke. Like everything's a Coke. Like here in Alabama, everything's a Coke. Like if you want a Pepsi, it's called a Coke. Like you'll say, yeah, I'd like a Coke, and then they say what kind, and then you say like Pepsi or Sprite or something, or you just say the name of the drink.
Excuse me, can I have some pop? Man, that actually sounded kind of British. I don't even know what I was going for there, but y'all know what I mean.
Dude, you say, excuse me, governor, can I have some pop? It's like, dude, that's not even a Midwesterner. That's just some guy from like Yorkshire or something. But anyways, with that, that's the end of the clip. Nice to see the Radrog hitting some Russian forces. And meanwhile, near Avdiivka, we also get to see some Ukrainian Bradleys hard at work. Oh, and we're going to be muting that. Let's see here.
Somebody said the fun of state, Mississippi. Here's the thing, though, about that, Jack. Like, everybody kind of knows Mississippi. Like, I'm just leveling with everybody here. If you live in Mississippi, no offense to you, there's great people in Mississippi. But overall, like, the state itself is not known for being, like, a really up-to-date state when it comes to, like, being modernized and stuff like that. It's kind of, like, a little bit old school with the way, like, everything's kind of, back stuck in a before era. But nobody really makes fun of it, really, like, on a popular level. It's just kind of there. I don't really hear too many people making fun of it.
Man, honestly, whenever we hear anyone's from Mississippi, we're like, ooh, really, it's rough out there. Like, just in case y'all didn't know this is how weird Mississippi is. Like just saying something seriously about them. Sharecropping was a thing in Mississippi with like plantation owners and everything until the late 1970s. Like that's a true thing, Maddie. I actually watched a documentary on it, and there were actual like folks out there still living in former slave quarters on a plantation, sharecropping for the plantation owner. And I was like, that's wild. I was like, I didn't even know that went on until the late 70s. Because, like, when you hear about that in American history, usually that ended by the time of the 1910s or the 1920s, most places. In Mississippi, it was the late 70s. Like, we were in Vietnam, and there was still sharecropping going on in Mississippi. Like, that's pretty wild when you think about it.
Yeah, it takes southern states like Alabama, Mississippi a long time to, like, break old stuff like that.
Yeah, and then also, it takes a long time for some of these places, in my personal opinion, to do things that are in our interest, because we get like obsessed on one thing, like we gotta build another prison, and then like everything else is falling apart. And it's like, can we just not build another prison just for now and just do something?
And you get a lump sum. You get a lump sum of money from the government, like the federal government. They're like, here, Alabama, here's $5 billion, and everybody's like, oh my God, this is going to change our lives. And then the governor comes out and says, we're going to build 3 state-of-the-art prisons. It's like,
damn.
What? all the $5 billion is going to the 3 prisons.
And then
it's like, talking about, these prisons will be the best prisons you've ever seen. It's going to have TVs on the wall. It's like, who cares? It's a prison.
But better yet, Matthew, what's even better about that is that they're private prisons. So they're being built on pretty much tax money, but they're going to be run like private companies. It's like, why? It's
that sounds great.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Sounds like the Alabama corruption a little bit out there.
Well, that's actually something really interesting about the modern U.S. Prison system, is that a lot of the prisons are actually privately run. Did you know that?
I knew that some of them were, but not the majority of them.
Yeah, most of them are actually privately run, especially in the modern day, as the incarceration rates and the amount of the prison population rapidly grew over like the past 3 decades. A whole bunch of new prisons were being built, and a lot of them ended up being privately run and owned. So I was like, that's a little wild. And apparently the ones here in Alabama will also be that as well. But here's the 47 Magura conducting some drone operations. And also someone said for-profit prisons could never be a bad thing. I would have to, I'm going to say this, y'all. Here's my personal opinion. Private prisons are a bad idea. Like, I don't feel like that's a really political statement. I feel like that's just kind of a common sense thing. Because if a prison runs to make profit, doesn't it incentivize them to keep prisoners around or find ways to keep the prisoners around as long as they can, so that way they can continue to try and make profit off of them? It's like, that doesn't seem like a good system, because the prison system is like in its raw natural essence is a punitive system. It is not supposed to be a profitary system where it makes money. It is entirely punitive. So anything beyond the punitive measure of a prison seems to me to be going beyond the scope of what a prison really is supposed to be. And we can see the drones flying off. And also, why was that in all caps, man? Like, did I miss that earlier?
No, I just said it right there.
Oh,
Also, by the way, I saw someone in the live chat just real quick while I saw it, and before it gets pushed up, it says, "I know you guys left the law degree, but be careful how much you're being open on the stream." Here's my thing, Corbin. Here's my thing. We are an open book to an extent. But we keep our own like political beliefs private and things like that. Also, we try to keep our like religious beliefs private as well, even though we've said that on the stream before, just because it was in context of the moment. But anything that I say on stream, I will say that I'll back it up. If someone ever says later, like, "Hey, you said this," like, what do you say, like answering for it? I'll be like, well, that's what I said. That was my opinion, and I'm going to stand behind it. That's what I'm going to say. So, it's just, I'm not going to back off any of my statements. If someone's like trying to like tell me you need to back off that or else, I'm going to be like, well, then or else, because I'm not backing off what I said. I think that's a problem in our modern society to an extent. When people say their opinion, they feel like, oh, I need to back off of it if someone says like, we don't like that. It's like, no, it's like if it's your opinion, as long as it's within reason. Like you can't have a crazy opinion or say you want to hurt someone or something like that. It's not within reason. But we don't say things that are out of the norm and out of like craziness and stuff like that. So we stand behind what we say.
Yeah, and that's also something I would like to say really quickly, because some people are like, "Ooh, wait until someone pulls this up in like 20 years when you're running for president and plays it." It's like if I think that something isn't good enough to say on stream, I don't say it. Like if I say something on stream, I'm saying it because I back it up 100%. Like if someone played that to me in a video in the future and said, "Did you say that?" Obviously, I'm not going to go, no, I did. Like, and I will stand behind it. Like if I say something like, "Man, Detroit's pretty rough," and then like I'm running for president, someone says, "You said Detroit is rough. Is that true?" I'll go, "Hell yeah!" Like, and if it's still rough by then, I'll be going, "And it's still rough. That's why you gotta vote for me. I'm gonna try and fix it." Like that's what I would do. I'm not gonna sit there and be ashamed of something I said, because most of what we say, it's got either a semblance of reality in it a little bit, or I back it up 100%, and that's my own personal opinion. I'm not gonna be some politician in the future who someone goes, "You went to a party in college, and you did something a little questionable there. Was that really you?" And then they go, well, I mean, you got proof of it, but I really didn't do that. That wasn't me. Like, if I do something, it's either going to be above level enough that I would be fine with saying that I did do that. And that's with all my comments here, because like, what do I say? Like, I can't really think of anything I say on stream that I'd actually be ashamed of in the future. Like, if someone takes one of our jokes or something, like Fine Peruvian Blow, and plays that back to me, I'll be like, "Yeah, that was pretty funny too." Like, what, do you not like it? Like, and then if they don't like it, I'll be like, "Well, comedy's subjective. Like, you're not going to like everything." That's...
Man, if I ever do anything where I'm in like the public or something like that, and people are bringing stuff up and trying to show clips and stuff, and they like show a clip of me yelling "yeehaw" or something like that, and they're gonna be like, "Why are you being so goofy?" I'm gonna be like, "Well, what, do you not have a sense of humor or something?" It's like, it is what it is. It's like, I'm not scared of people like hearing what I say or me being goofy at times and stuff like that. I'm doing what makes me happy, and that's all that matters. And it's within reason. We're not being crazy on here. We're just having a sense of humor and also speaking the news out here. And occasionally we're adding in a couple of bits of opinion from time to time, but we stand behind it all the way.
Yeah, I would have to say. And wait, hang on. Let's see. Oh, look at that, man. Look at that. You see that one? Oh man.
I'll see. Oh yeah.
Yeah, look
Bye-bye.
at that. Yeah, see you around, bozo. Anyways, moving on from that, down near Alexandriivka, we got to see a Russian truck cooking.
До Светлодарска где-то
Anna
1,5
Bohanka.
километра.
Cooking. Well, it's cooked, actually. Well done. And another year-old cooked to perfection. And a Kamaz abandoned. It looks like the hood got busted in by a drone.
Вот еще один.
And another Buhanka in the ditch. And I be dipped. We didn't even get to that poll, Matthew. As I just saw in the text. Poll! Beyond that, we got an interesting question. Another Russian flotilla will be passing by Florida, heading towards Cuba. And some people are wondering, should America intervene? A lot of people are saying that we should just shadow them. But Matthew, what are folks saying, and what are you thinking?
All right. So this question right here says another Russian flotilla will be passing by Florida, heading toward Cuba, and should the U.S. intervene? It looks like 44% said, let's just shadow the Russian vessels and leave it at that, while 26% said, no, it's international waters and we should not interfere, and 25% said, yes, the USA should block passage of the Russian ships. Now, this is one thing that we have to be very careful about. We don't want to start delving down to the level of Russia, because while it's not very good that Russian vessels are passing by Florida, and obviously we don't like that, it's sort of testing our sovereignty to an extent, they are in international waters, and as long as they stay there, there's really nothing that we could be able to do to stop the Russian flotilla. Now, on the other hand, though, if we have intel that they're bringing stuff down to Cuba to set up an illegal base or something like that down there, or a spy base, then we might have grounds to maybe try to interfere in it a little bit. But until we have intel about that, it's really hard to do anything. So I'm with the 44%. I say just shadow the Russian vessels and let them know that our presence is known and around the area as well. And we should leave it at that, at least for now. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree with that completely, honestly. I can't even add anything to that. Like, that's the exact kind of stuff I would lay out. If they're carrying something, we should stop them. If they're not carrying anything, they're within the realms of international law. Legally, there's no good justification for us to do anything to them, so we kind of have to let them go. So with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. So I would be with a large group of y'all, shadow them, unless if we have reasonable suspicion to believe that they're carrying some sort of equipment or weaponry into Cuba. But moving on from that and into Marinka, we also got to see the 116th TDF blowing up some Russian vehicles with some heavily copyrighted music in the background, possibly blowing up our ad-free stream. But we muted it very quickly, and we can now see them going for the Russian vehicle, and boom! Getting it. When you see this Russian BTR at a roundabout, and they blew that one up too.
Boom.
Boom. And boom. And boom. And we can see a shed, one of the rare sheds. You know, I've seen the sheds kind of disappear recently, Matthew. I haven't been seeing them a lot anymore.
Yeah, the sheds have gone by the wayside. You know also something while I'm remembering it. The Russian flotilla, which making its way down toward Cuba here very shortly, that flotilla is not bringing with it a tugboat this time. Did you hear that, Enforcer?
Oh, that's interesting. No, I didn't. Why is that, Matthew? Do you know?
So what we're being told here is the Russians believe they'll get down to Cuba with no engine problems whatsoever, and they're not going to get stranded somewhere. So they're not bringing the tugboat. The first time they did bring the tugboat because they were cautious and they wanted to make sure they weren't going to embarrass themselves while leaving one of their ships abandoned right next to their enemy's coast. But this time, they're playing it very risky. And at least by what the Russians are saying, they're not bringing one along. So this could be this could go terribly for the Russians if something does break down, because then they're right there off our coast, and we might come out there and pay them a visit and say, "Would you like some assistance, good sir?" and try to board their vessel or something. So you never know.
Dude, imagine having such a prominence in the realm of your navy that everywhere you go that's a little bit of a ways away from Russia, a tugboat has to accompany you because you're scared the ship might just break down. Like, that is one hell of a navy right there. Because when we send our ships out, you don't see a tugboat like shadowing an Arleigh Burke or anything. The Arleigh Burke is just on its own. Like, that, dude,
Yeah,
that really says a lot.
that's like having like let's see here. That's like having a fleet of cars or something like that. Like you're driving to like across country, and instead of just driving your cars across country, you got to have like a tow truck follow you all the way there because you're driving such a jalopy, you're not sure if it's gonna make it. It's like we're pushing this old baby to the limit. It's like we don't know if it's gonna make it or not. It's like running on 2 cylinders and stuff. It's like spitting fire out the back. It's like it's just a junk ship, and the Russians know it. That's why they take the tugboat with them.
Dude, hang on. Dude, hold on.
The tugboat probably broke down too, said George Tencher. I mean, it's possible. It's like the tugboat may be broken as well.
Man, better yet, man. Dude, the Russians, whenever they hear that weird clanking noise from the engine room again, they're this guy, man.
Oh,
like,
damn.
They're like, oh my God, like, is it gonna break down?
I mean, that's like that syndrome that fish get, you know, like Popeye, like their eyes are popping out of their head and stuff like that. No, not him, not the spinach man.
Man, would you believe, man, that we're way overtime on our news segment? We're like 30 minutes overtime right now. Like I'm looking at that. I'm like, dang, man, we could joke, but we got to get through the news segment. I'm like, dang, man. Oh man, and now the videos aren't loading. But anyways, we got to see a burning BMP down near Hlboke. I know I'm gonna have to mute this in a second. I just wanted y'all to hear something. That when you're teaching first graders how what letters are what. But we can see the BMP burning here. Wonderful, beautiful, absolutely tremendous. And
hey, it's the North Koreans. It's the North Koreans.
But anyways, moving on from that into our next clip near Verbove, we also got to see a destroyed Mr. S. Cooked to perfection.
Excellent.
I mean, here's some old clanker moving around in the background. Man, just blown up in place. A sad way to go. And with that, that's the end of that clip right there. Very, very interesting to see. And I'm telling you, man, tonight is the night of bots, man. I'm telling you. Like, I saw another one. Like, you just got rid of them immediately. Thank you for that. But, dang. Why don't they just keep showing up? Like, it's crazy. Anyways, here's the Omega unit near Bro, we got that traditional trap beat. Like, dude, I never heard anything like that before.
Can we have a little snippet? Just a small snippet?
Okay, that's not traditional anymore. Yeah, that's enough. Yeah. But we can see them here firing onto the Russian positions as they storm them. I wonder if one of these
this guy's got some interesting recoil control. Do you see that gun jumping around like that? What was that? Just like a normal AR-15 or something?
Mm-hmm, yeah, that was called the sprayin' and prayin', right there. I'm not really sure if this guy is aiming.
Is that 5.56?
Yeah.
Dang, man, he's letting that beat him up pretty bad, like for just a round like that.
I'm not gonna lie, I'd agree. Like the muzzle control on that's a little tough. Like, yeah.
I mean, obviously, I'm not a soldier. I mean, he might be nervous or something like that, or getting worried he's in the middle of a battle. But you know, I don't think it's supposed to be jumping around like that.
Yeah, I don't think that's supposed to happen. You know what I mean? And with that, that's the end of the clip right there. Very interesting to see, but still showing the Omega unit at work. Meanwhile, moving on out of the area of Zaporizhia and on down over into Kherson, we also got to see a Pantsir got blown up. Really nice. Of course, we got a couple of pictures of that, but still, another Pantsir destroyed. Good to see. We also got to hear that the Saki airfield was apparently hit with ATACMS, but right now that's only a report, and we've not been able to get video and picture evidence to corroborate those claims. And so, with that, we're now going to be moving up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 844 of the war. And so,
speech. Could we please have real speech? We have all the news from Ukraine. Hello, my fellow Ukrainians.
It is 1 minute longer than normal. Here is the speech.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці, українки. Кілька речей за цей день. Перша нарада з міністром оборони про нові оборонні пакети для України, те, що ми готуємо з партнерами. Важливо, щоб наші воїни отримували саме те, що необхідно в цих умовах дуже жорстких боїв і тиску російської армії. Зокрема, із міністром і з військовим командуванням ми детально розбираємо ситуацію на складних напрямках. Передусім, це Покровський напрямок на Донеччині. Саме цей напрямок був і залишається основним напрямком російських атак. Двічі сьогодні були доповіді головкома Сирського. Має бути зроблено і буде зроблено все, щоб посилити наші позиції, нашу українську здатність завдавати окупанту відчутних втрат. Друге за сьогодні. Я хочу особливо відзначити наших воїнів, які завдають ударів по російських базах і логістиці на окупованій території. Окупант повинен відчувати, що це українська земля, і кожна знищена російська авіабаза, кожен знищений російський військовий літак на землі чи то в повітрі – це порятунок українських життів. Хлопці, наші воїни, я дякую вам за влучність. Третє. Я підписав кілька указів про відзначення державними нагородами наших захисників-захисниць зі Збройних сил України, з Національної гвардії України, з Державної прикордонної служби. І хочу зараз відзначити ще підрозділи та воїнів, які саме цими тижнями проявили себе особливо в боях заради нашої держави, заради нашої незалежності. Це 4-та та 14-та бригади оперативного призначення Нацгвардії, 18-та Слов'янська бригада Нацгвардії, а також воїнів першого загону Центру спецпризначення «Омега», які завжди підсилюють нашу оборону там, де найскладніше. Окремо старший солдат Андрій Дикун, молодший сержант Роман Ільчук та Олександр Сахненко, сержант Антон Чайка, головний сержант взводу спеціального призначення Володимир Романюк, лейтенант Руслан Мінченко, і дякую вам, воїни. Також хочу відзначити наших прикордонників, Харківський прикордонний загін, Сумський, Чернігівський, Луганський прикордонні загони, підрозділи морської охорони та Південного регіонального управління, Херсонський прикордонний загін, майстер-сержант Станіслав Налесніков, сержант Вадим Савінов, старший сержант Сергій Щербіна та головний сержант Олександр Касьян. Молодші сержанти Костянтин Гнатишин та Денис Євстратов, старший солдат Михайло Урдинець, головний сержант Кирило Авдієнко. Дякую вам, хлопці, вашим побратимам та усім, хто захищає Україну. Слава Україні!
And Heroes Slava.
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 884 of the news of the war in Ukraine. And that is moving us on into the second segment of this stream, where we get to talk to every single one of y'all. And I gotta say that it is always the funnest part of the stream, because we get to talk about literally anything and everything anyone wants to talk about. We get to talk about the hood reviews, which really end up being just wherever anyone wants us to look at, we end up looking at. It used to be actual hoods, but then it just turned into everything. Or we could talk about history, or we could talk about Ukraine, or we could talk about world affairs. We could talk about literally anything. The world is our oyster, and we get to do it with all of y'all. So make sure to stick around if you're still here right now, because we have a lot of fun stuff to go. And some people say, well, it's not my question being answered, and maybe it's not, but at least at the beginning. We eventually get to almost all of them. But we always have a good fun time. There's always some jokes being thrown around here and there. There's always some funny stuff being said. Some people put out real zingers. But with that, Matthew, take it away.
All right, so guess what? We're entering our final question segment of the night. And sadly, we don't have any more polls to address because I didn't put one up. So with that, we're moving on to our Super Chat segment. And our first Super Chat is going to Rob Eisman, who's a longtime channel legend. And it's good to see you once again, Rob. And he puts in a $50 donation, and thank you very much. He says, a shout out to my fellow submariners, both active and veterans, and those forever patrol, and run silent and run deep.
And it's Rob Eisman, legendary. Welcome back, Rob Eisman. We haven't seen you, I haven't seen you that much lately, and it's good to have you back. And also, I got to say thank you for once again throwing out a big tribute to your fellow submariners, both active and veterans, because there are a lot of them out there. Of course, in the U.S. Navy, being one of the largest submarine force, I think it is the largest submarine force in the world currently. And so a huge shout out and a huge remembrance for all of those veterans and current serving submariners out there, because they are doing a very important job protecting the Western world and protecting the United States form of a republic. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Rob Eisman. I hope that does address that well, and I hope that gives proper homage. Also, Matthew, one thing that I found really interesting lately, very, very interesting, is that, and I want to throw this out there because this is something interesting. The first submarine ever used in combat, some of y'all may know what it's called, but it's called the H.L. Hunley, and it was actually used by the Confederate States of America during the U.S. Civil War. It actually has been pulled from the bottom of Charleston Harbor, and it's currently on display. And I'm trying to see if I can, well, I think it's currently on display. I think that's it right there. But you can actually see what remains of the Hunley. It actually stayed pretty much intact at the bottom of Charleston Harbor, but a lot of people have been trying to figure this out because this is the story of the first submarine ever actually used in combat. The submarine sank the USS Housatonic in Charleston Harbor, but when it did, it then sank under mysterious circumstances. And let me see if I can get you all a better picture. This is a painting of the Hunley, but it sank under mysterious circumstances, and people don't really know what happened to it. Some people believe that one of the portholes in the submarine was actually hit by a by a shot from a U.S. Marine on board the Housatonic, and that's what led to them sinking. Because when they cast the anchor on the front of the Hunley, it pulled the front of the sub down just enough that that porthole started to fill with water, and everyone drowned. They actually found out recently, due to a whole bunch of forensic studies on the remains of those submariners that were inside of the submarine, that the reason why everyone died and the submarine mysteriously sank was because when they set the mine into the side of the Housatonic, because how this thing worked is that they would just try and get up as much speed as they could in this little submarine. They would ram this giant spear into the side of a ship that had a bomb attached to it, and then they would start backing up. And once they got a certain distance, they would pull a little cord, because, you know, the cord would be stretched to its full length, that would then blow up the explosive that was on the tip of that spear. Well, it was kind of like a big, like, keg thing on the tip of the spear. What they found out is that the explosion actually was so close to the submarine, everyone died from overpressure in it, so everyone died instantly in that thing as soon as the bomb went off. So not only did they sink the Housatonic, they actually ended up sinking themselves as well.
Well, that's terrible. I actually did not know that. But also, here's probably something you don't know about submarines. Do you know who is the largest builder of mini subs in the world? Which company is it that builds the most?
Let's see. If I had
It's actually pretty obvious. Like, when you hear the answer, you're going to be probably like, oh, I should have known that.
And for some reason, I'm thinking Samsung, but I know that's not right. So who is it?
So it's actually the cartel. They build the most mini subs around the world. Like seriously, that's not a joke. They build these submarines. They're like semi-submersibles. Really, they're not full submarines, but they float right below the surface of the water. And some of them are manned and some of them are unmanned. But they create the most mini subs around the world by just sheer volume. And they're really sort of primitive subs. They're not very advanced, obviously.
Let's see. I think some of these are like called low profile vessels or something like that, because they're not really submersible, but they have such a low profile above the waterline. They almost look like it, like this one. Like I think the waterline is literally where the gray paint is at. And so for the
Yeah,
large part,
it's some of it. It's some of them. They can actually submerge those below the water. I think about a foot or so. But typically, because there's usually like one or two people inside of them, they want to keep the thing, above the water a little bit because they don't want to risk drowning in there because they're obviously shoddily put together. So they typically keep them up a little bit, but that makes them prone to being boarded by the Coast Guard if they can spot them, which it's happened multiple times before on video.
well, I think on some of these, Matty, I don't think they're full on subs, because I watched a documentary like on this one, and their ventilation shafts are right back there. So if they submerged a foot, they have water flooding into the engine bay, and the engines are going to stall. So I think some of them are subs. I think most of them though are some kind of a low visibility vehicle or a low profile vessel or something like that. I think is what the actual
Submersible.
well, what?
A semi-submersible. That's some of them. But like I said, there's some of them that can go 1 foot below the water. It just depends on the model. Like that's not the only narco sub. That picture right there. That's not
Oh
the
yeah.
only one. They've got some other ones that look more like the. I guess you look more like the Titan submersible. But I don't know where you can find a picture of it. But I've seen it on Twitter before.
Let's see. Let's see. Here's the real submarine that they found, the one that actually can submerge. Dude, that looks
It
so
looks like a
jank.
Russian submarine or an Iranian one or something out here in the swamp.
Man, but here's the thing though, because what I'm talking about, like I said, most of them are the low profile vessels or the semi-submersibles, if you want to call them that. The thing is that no one has ever caught the real submarines. Like they know they exist, like this one here, because they find them every once in a while in a jungle somewhere. But they've never found one and actually seized it while it was underway to America. So we don't know how many of these there are. Like, we don't really know much at all about them. We know with this one, though, how the inside looked and everything, because I remember watching... there was a YouTube documentary on the narco subs. It was like an hour and 20 minutes long. I watched the whole thing, and this was like one of only 2 real submarines that they have found. And they showed like pictures of the inside and everything and explained how it will work. Apparently, this thing operates kind of like an electric diesel submarine where it can submerge for short whiles, but then it has to surface to snorkel pretty much, and then it can resubmerge again. It's really...
Well, I'm sure we'll probably learn more about it after we've captured El Mayo or El Mayo. His name's El Mayo, by the way. I learned that today when I heard a reporter say it. It's not El Mayo. We were saying the name wrong the whole time. It's El Mayo. But maybe he'll spill the beans and tell us some more about these submarines right here. Since he got turned on. Also, it was proven, by the way, that someone snitched on him and actually convinced him to get on a private jet. And they were saying they were going to go look at property in Mexico, but they actually took the jet to El Paso, Texas, and the FBI was waiting there on the tarmac to get him when they got off the plane. So he got turned on by El Chapo's son.
Dude, the betrayal. Oh my gosh, dude. That is literally like a movie level betrayal right there.
It really is. I was curious how they got him in El Paso because they don't just show up in the United States. It never happens like that. So he was duped into going there. And the ongoing story is that El Chapo's son blamed El Mayo for the capture of his father, and he wanted to get even with him. It's not very clear if he took a plea deal as the reason why he snitched. Nobody really knows. It sounds like maybe he was just getting even for what he thought he did to his father.
That's interesting, Matthew. Also, Matthew, you want to know something? That while you were talking, I just looked at the caption on this picture that we're looking at here, and it blew my mind. This narco sub here, which came from Central America, is at the National Police Corps School in Spain, because this thing transited all the way across the Atlantic, and then they caught it off the Spanish coast.
Oh, that's I didn't know that.
I did not know that either. Now that I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, they said that there was like some limited operation of them in a transatlantic form, but that is apparently incredibly rare and very uncommon. And that's why a lot of the street drugs here in America that are usually well, they're not cheap, but they're relatively cheap compared to where they are elsewhere in the world. In Europe, they're a lot more expensive. It's because the amount of supply versus the demand is very, very skewed compared to the United States. So very interesting, man. It's kind of interesting how the cartels pretty much just run an entire underground secret economy for the large part, like the supply and demand in different areas of the world and trying to supply that demand. It's a very interesting thing to kind of think about how they run an entire like black market level economy. That
They
hardly anyone
operate
knows
just like North Korea, really. Like North Korea is basically like a really large cartel in the form of a state. But they operate the same way that the cartel do. They sell drugs, they sell all kinds of contraband and things like that, and they make money on the dark market a lot. And that's obviously the cartel's whole business. And North Korea tries to pretend like that's not their whole business, but really everybody knows it's kind of like an open secret. A big portion of their GDP is by doing these nefarious things.
Yeah, and also another thing, Matt, to point out here with this supposed submarine is notice once again that all of the ventilation or really ducts for the engine are right on the water line. So this thing can't submerge because if it did, water's flowing right into the engine bay and it flounders right on the spot.
Yeah, and also the people are going to flounder too.
Yeah, it's like they're all going to drown. Pretty much is like not a good one. Let's see here. Here's
Could you imagine, like, what happens if you're in this narco sub right here, and all of a sudden, like, the perfect storm rolls up? Like, you're going to be screwed in this thing, like, absolutely effed over completely. Because if you have some massive waves hitting this thing, unless it's, like, airtight, like the ones right here that are semi-submersible that don't have, like, complete air tightness around it, you're going to get flooded.
That's an interesting point, man. I wonder how many of them die out there in these things.
Probably a lot. They don't care about the mules anyway.
Yeah, I would have to say so, but I mean that's wild, man, to think about that. Like how many of these things have sank to the bottom of the sea with their crews being lost that no one knows about. I'm very interested to know if there was an actual figure on that. But let's see. Dude, see also anti-submarine warfare. Like they're going to drop a depth charge on this thing like a hedgehog or something and blow it out of the water. Let's see. Merchant submarine. What? Hold up. Okay, so these things really didn't exist. I was about to be like, there's no damn way that anyone ever used a submarine for like cargo. Like, because, a submarine can hardly carry anything. So, and on top of that, they're really inefficient when you're talking about on an economic sense of transporting cargoes. But that is a massive submarine in New London in 1916. Also, there are the milk cows, which I think are the closest thing that really came around. Let me see if I can find those for y'all. The milk cow. Where is the milk cow? The milk cow. Where is it? They had it. I saw it. Where is it? Come on. Hang on. Here we go. So let me see if I can show you the cross profile of the milk cow, Matthew, because these things were like a German U-boat from World War II, but on steroids. So, milk cow submarine. The reason why they were called milk cows is because they would carry a large amount of cargo and supplies and provisions for other U-boats that were operating close to the United States. So they pretty much operated as forward, they pretty much were forward operating bases for the German submarine fleets. But this is what a milk cow looked like. That thing was chunky.
It was.
Are you good?
I was I was sitting over here taking a drink. I started trying to talk, and I went. I realized I was choking.
Dude,
it looks like a milk cow, man. It does. Now I understand why they called it the milk cow. It's very, very fat.
Man, that thing is fat. that thing is thick. And it's something else right there, man. I gotta tell you. But let me see here. Let's see. None of these survive, by the way. The United States destroy these things with impunity. We literally sank all of them. So none of them exist in like a museum or anything these days. But still, a pretty cool little submarine to kind of mention and talk about here and there. Relatively unknown. But still, thank you for the support, Rob Eisman. I hope that does address that well. And I hope that does talk a good bit about submarines as well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and moving on from that one, we're moving on to our next super chat, and this one goes to Steve T. He puts in a $50
Hey!
donation, and thank you very much, Steve, for that support as well. Very generous. He said, "Grab some brass and go to the range to calm down and keep the news coming. And I respect the work you put in to make it the most accurate and the most current news."
Hey, and I got to thank you for the support and the kind words, Steve T. And I got to thank you for saying get some brass and go to the range to blow up steam. I've actually been holding back from the range these days, just trying to take a break from it a little bit because I usually go to indoor ranges and the amount of lead in the air is kind of high, and I don't want to get leaded up too young. So I'm going to just make sure to take a little break and a little breather from that for a while to make sure that I don't get too affected by that too much, too quickly. But beyond that, I would have to say that thank you so much for enjoying the news that we put out. Thank you so much for enjoying everything that we do on this channel to make it possible and do it the very special and specific way that we do it. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, Steve T, who enjoyed this channel enough to support it and help it to keep on running, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and moving on from Steve's super chat, we're moving on to our next one, which goes to Howard Turgell, also a legend as well. He puts in a $30 donation, and we appreciate it very much, Howard. He says, LSA, LSA, and take a question from the chat.
Hey, and long live the Lee Spring Army, and thank you for the support, Howard Turgell, and helping this channel to keep on running. And we will make sure to take one from the live chat. And so, what do we got, Matthew?
And this one goes to Purple Gerbil, who says, "Do you think that with Ukraine and China meeting, that maybe that was a grain for weapons deal?"
No, I don't think it'd be a grain for weapons deal. It was most likely just trying to see where the Chinese were, and then finally, because the Ukrainians are trying so hard to open a dialogue with the Chinese finally went, okay, now it's time for us to go active and just try and pull the Ukrainians right into the Chinese sphere economically. The Chinese never really work on a militarized standpoint with most countries of like, let's give them guns and weapons and maybe that'll make them friends. They usually work off of an economic or a legal perspective to try and pull people into their sphere of influence. And with Ukraine, they're going with the economic approach. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Very, very good question, though. Very interesting one. I thank you so much for sponsoring that live chat, Howard Turgell, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running once again, Howard.
Yes, indeed. And speaking of Purple Gerbil, we actually have a super chat from them, and this is a $20 donation. And thank you once again for that support. They said, LSA, smash that like, and take one from the chat, and LSA.
And thank you so much for the support, Purple Gerbil. Smash the like button if you want to. It makes us very happy when people like this stream. And also, we will make sure to take a live chat in your honor, Purple Gerbil. And so with that, thank you once again. And Matthew, what do we got from the live chat?
And this one goes to, let's see here, You're Taking My Life, who says, is that why they set up all the hospital tents? Is because Russia knew that the dam was about to fail?
I don't think so, because that dam failed, and while it is flooding the area, from what we know, there isn't going to be mass casualties across all of Russia where they needed those kinds of hospitals. So I would say probably not. I would doubt that a little bit. And also, once again, if it was for that specific event, then all of the hospitals would be localized within that one area. Like, for example, with Hurricane Katrina down in New Orleans, you didn't see that the United States start to open up rescue centers all the way from California to Maine to deal with Hurricane Katrina. Pretty much all of them were very localized, either around the area of New Orleans or around the areas of the Southeast in a very, very small area. So once again, it is not localized enough of a response for them to have gotten ready for the dam rupture. And so with that, I hope that does address that live chat well. And I thank you so much once again for the support, Purple Gerbil, and sponsoring that live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next super chat is going to go to Teslans, who puts in a 20, and thank you very much, Teslans, for that support as well. He said, the USA and its allies are getting to that point of opening a full-blown can of whoop-ass on Russia if they don't get back to their own kennel.
Dang, they're getting back in the kennel like a
Back
dog.
to the kennel. But kennel up.
Oh, man, the little corgis, man. We tell them that every single night. Also, Matthew, I don't know what it was, but Sheba was acting very, very sweet tonight. Did you notice that?
Yes, the poor thing. She's so tired.
Yeah, poor little thing. I think she was sleepy or something because she was wandering around just like begging to be put to bed. But beyond that, I got to say, thank you so much for the support, Teslans. And I would have to say, the United States is getting a little close, but we're still just a little too far away, in my opinion. I think we should have been there a little while ago, but nevertheless, America does what America does. I don't think, I'll be entirely honest with y'all, I don't think America would do what I'd wanted to do, at least on a governmental level, in either direction at this point. But with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion, Teslans. I think he wants to give her support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Starboy Righteous, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Starboy, for that support as well. They said, have a drink at Enforcer and Enforcer Matt. And I know the Enforcer said you guys don't drink, but bottoms up and LOC. And we don't drink, Starboy. That is correct. We do not drink, but we do drink, like I'm drinking right now, the good Arizona tea. And a good $20 support that will get 20 cans of the Tall Boy, the good Arizona green tea. And I appreciate it very much because it does wet the whistle and keep me from choking on air, which seems to be a problem these days. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you for the support as well. And I gotta say, we do not drink. And also, like, I sat there and thought it out a while ago. I was like, do I why do I not drink? Because every once in a while I ask myself questions like that about myself, and I'm like, what is the reason why that isn't the case? Like, why do I not drink or something like that? And so there were a couple of reasons I came up with in my head to explain that, because a lot of people would be like, well, that's kind of weird that you don't drink because you're like 22 and Matthew's 24. Shouldn't you be drinking? Everyone drinks. One, we work every single day of the week. There's no time for me to drink or get drunk or anything like that because I have to get up and pretty much just start working the next day. Two, I've never really been that big of a fan of how alcohol tastes. I'm also not really a big fan of thinking of getting tipsy because you kind of lose control of your faculties. We have to be ready to go and working all the time, pretty much 24/7, and so having not complete function of one's basic faculties would be a little bit of an issue, especially for me. Also, I can't be drunk and get on stream. That's a very bad precedent to set, especially considering that while our jokes have gotten a little bit more crass over the years, at the same time, I do like to make sure to try and put forward a good, competent, well put together image. And so drinking would not be a good look for that. And so those are a couple of reasons why I don't drink. And also on top of that, where would I drink and why? I'm not, I'm not like feeling like, I could have a more fun time being drunk. Honestly, I have a fun enough time as it is right now. And so I'm like, man, drinking would just make it more difficult for me to have the fun I like to have. Like playing a video game or something after the stream most nights. Because actually, y'all, I found this game, and I just want to say this because this is a game that kind of brings us back to the roots of the channel, but it's super fun. It's called Railroads Online, and it's a little game where you play as a narrow gauge railroad in the northwestern United States, kind of around the Colorado area, sort of. It is so fun. I've been playing it with some friends, usually after the stream or before the stream, and it is an absolute blast. Like I like playing games like that. And if I was drunk or drinking, I wouldn't be able to enjoy a game like that too much because I'd probably not be able to play it. I hope that doesn't address that well while we don't drink, but we will have a root beer on you. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Starboy Righteous. And also, let's see here. I quit drinking and don't miss it. One thing I will say, I'm going to say this, is, and I'm not saying this on everyone, but I've noticed this with a few people I've known since before they started drinking and after they started drinking. A few of them seem to have lost their personality, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Like, before they started drinking, they were always joking around, pretty talkative, pretty active people, like they would like engage you just normally, and they were pretty fun to be around. But then when they started drinking and and they get drunk a couple of times, for some reason it seems like for some of them they lose their personality, and the only time they ever regain their normal personality is when they drink and get close to being drunk or they're drunk. And that's something I've noticed with a few people, and that's something that I'm scared would happen to me, especially if I, for some reason, started to get drunk all the time, is what if I became like an emotionless person like Hot Dog Man that was very boring,
Oh,
like normally, and that was how it was. That's something where I'm like, I don't really think I'd want to touch it because I would be scared of turning into pretty much just like a drone, pretty much just, not really having any personality or anything at that point. But with that, I hope that does address that well. I hope that tells you all another little bit of a fear that I've seen, because that's something, Matthew. I don't know if you've noticed that, Matthew, but we would know people in school before they started drinking, and then once they started drinking, they became like some of the most uninteresting and bland people, like on a day-to-day basis after they started drinking. Like the only reason they'd be interesting was when they were drinking.
no, it's really those kids that started vaping. When they started vaping, that's what really zapped somebody. Like I saw the most like grounded, level-minded people, or some, at least somewhat, not all the way, but maybe some of the grounded people here. They'd start vaping, and immediately it was like they turned into like a bundle of nerves. Like unless they were hitting that vape, they were like bouncing around, just all kinds of stuff, like just losing it all the time. And I was like, what the hell happened to this person? And they had to be hitting that vape all the time, or they'd just go bonkers. But the alcohol did it too a little bit, but the vape was worse.
Yeah, I would say I don't really think I experienced that too much, but I would say I think maybe one person I know was like that. And dude, man, the people who with the vapes, man, it's not an addiction. And then you take their vape for like a second, give it back, or something like that. It's like, yeah, it's an addiction. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Still, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, Her Royal Fluffiness Celestia, Princess of Cake, said, Enforcer, get Railroader. It's better. And keep an eye out for Studio 346 Century Esteem. Okay, I was actually going to get that's actually a crazy coincidence you said that, Her Fluffiness, to right now. I was actually going to get Railroader and start downloading it after the stream was over and give it a shot, because I've heard a lot of good things about it, and everyone's saying it's like Train Simulator but way better and way more fun. And so I was like, well, I got to give that a shot, because I kind of enjoy Train Simulator a little bit. It's like, kind of nice thing to sit back and just play and relax on. Kind of like Farming Simulator, but for a more industrial mindset than an agricultural one. But I am going to get that game and try. Also, Century of Steam. Hold up, man. I'm going to have to check this one out here on air, because if I don't, I'm going to forget it, and I want to see what it is. So, oh, dude, this actually looks pretty freaking good. Wow, that is actually really nice. Is this from the people who made Railroads Online? Because it looks a lot like it. Like, let me know that. I'm very, very interested in that. So I'm gonna keep that in mind. Thank you for sharing that. That is one hell of a thing to share. That's actually something that I'm very appreciative of right there. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat is going to go to Ari Sawini, who's also a long-time channel legend. And huge shout out to Ari, the Kiwi wife, and Finn for that $50 support. And we appreciate it very much. They said, thank you for the juicy news coverage. Very juicy. Hardly catch live streams, but I caught the end of this one. And also, I'm glad you made it. They said, good work and happy late birthday and greetings to the LSA family. And also, big thanks for the happy late birthday as well, because it is like it's the summer of Matt. Because it is July. But thank you very much, Ari, once again. And Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta say, thank you for the huge support, Ari Sweeney, and of course, Kiwi Wife and Finn. Huge shout out to Kiwi Wife and Finn and keeping this channel running. And I gotta say, thank you so much for catching a live stream tonight. We love to have folks live. We understand when folks turn into lurkers, but we hate when they're lurkers, because we love to know when folks are here. Like, we miss folks when they're gone. And I gotta say, thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running. Thank you so much for supporting it, because if it wasn't for folks like you, Ari Sweeney, we wouldn't be able to be here and keep this channel possible, so we can keep this kind of coverage up. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And thank you for wishing Matthew a late happy birthday. People have been coming in the entire week and wishing Matthew a happy birthday. And it's incredibly kind of y'all and incredibly nice that so many people hear that he had a birthday and then they catch up on telling him a happy birthday. That is incredibly nice of y'all. Because y'all don't have to wish him a happy birthday at all. Y'all can tell him just screw him, something like that. I mean, go ahead, try. I'm kidding. Don't do that.
Whoa, Jack.
Whoa, Jack. Whoa, but still. Thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never die. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next super chat goes to Andy L. Once again, he throws in the second support of the night. And huge shout out to Andy once again for the generous support. And he threw in a 50. He said, in honor of BC Skyman and his family loss. Love him and condolences to him and his family. And yes, once again, condolences to BC because it was a terrible tragedy and unfortunately it did strike. So big condolences to BC once again. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I would have to agree. Big condolences to BC Scammon once again. It's always unfortunate to lose someone really close to you and your family. And I hope that he's doing well, given the circumstances. Of course, that's very relative considering the loss of a family member. But time does heal all wounds, and hopefully the loss, of course, the loss will hurt, but hopefully he'll be able to reconcile it and move on with time, because you always have to remember that it's sad to know that they're gone, but it was always great to know that you cared for them enough and enjoyed them enough while they're alive to be sad when they pass. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Andy L. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, I saw Apollo Rock say in the live chat, he said, Matt version 0.5 speed, LOL. I was like, I don't know. That probably sounds rough. But anyways, jumping into our next super chat, big shout out to Mark Young and also LSA Rocks, two channel legends, for each putting in a $20 donation, but not leaving comments. But we appreciate you both, Mark and LSA Rocks, very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta say a huge shout out to Mark Young and LSA Rocks. A huge shout out to both of y'all, and thank you for saying the LSA Rocks in your name, by the way. And a huge shout out to both of y'all. The support means a lot. It helps us to keep this thing running, and we are greatly appreciative of y'all, because if it wasn't for y'all, we wouldn't be able to be here covering this news right now. And so thank you to both of y'all so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Lord Lathos LSA, who puts in a 20 and says, hey guys, is there any chance that we can convince you to do another live on camera episode? And Andrew did a killer job with the video angles, and honestly, it feels more personal. And like perhaps one every 100 days. Well, I mean, it's possible. We won't have the same set again because we've dismantled that set. We'd have to set up a new one. And also, to be honest, I don't know if the Enforcer feels the same way. I think if we did an on-camera thing like that again, we would have to do it on like a special day where it was like not a normal news stream, because it's too hard to focus on trying to do the news nonstop and also do the cameras and everything else at the same time. Maybe if we had like a fireside chat or something where we had the camera set up and simply talk to the audience, that might be a better way to do it. But Enforcer, what say you about the idea?
I would say it's not a bad idea. I generally think that if we did something like that, it would probably have to start next year, which isn't that far away. It's only like about maybe 5 months away at this point, so that's not too far away. That's kind of weird though, because 5 months in the future for most of channel history would have been a really long time into the future. But nowadays, considering that we run for 2.5 years, we're almost going on 3. I'm like, yeah, that's the 5 months. That's not too long, because that would help us to be able to get a setup. That would also help me to do some things behind the scenes that Matthew knows about that are supposed to be improving things in general. You know what I'm getting at, Matthew. And so, improve things so that way when we're on camera, things are far better. And then we'll be on camera. We could do something like that. It's just that, like Matthew was saying, it's really hard to do that when we're also covering news, because not only am I having to remember a 2-hour-long monologue entirely in my head that I came up with just about 20 minutes before we went live on air, I'm having to flip cameras, I'm having to remember what camera angles are on, I'm also having to remember where I am relative to the camera, so that way I don't end up getting out of frame or end up getting unaligned. It is a lot to think about, and we don't have a crew doing it. We don't have like a little camera crew behind the scenes running everything. It's literally Matthew and me, both being the hosts and the camera people and the production crew all at the same time. So it's actually really difficult to pull that off. And
also trying to deal with honorary guests when they come on as well.
Oh my Lord.
That was a troublesome one. That was troublesome. I wish we could have filmed the behind the scenes of that. If I knew how it was going to go, I would have had a camera rolling in the background, so that way during the intermissions, they could literally see from like the beginning to the end, like bringing people into Zoom calls and trying to like talk to them before we bring them on, and how difficult that was to get people talking. I don't even know, man. Like, it was just, I wish I could have seen the whole thing, because if y'all could have seen the whole thing, y'all would really be laughing your heads off and how that really went, and then see the people talk when they were on the air and the way they were acting, and kind of a little bit uncouth on the air. It was just that was a very interesting one. I'll have to go back and watch that one day and see how that actually went, like when you watch it from a third-party perspective.
And also, another thing, Matthew, is that it would also show how we were treating people behind the scenes, because we were treating them as nice as we could. Like, no joke. We were going over the top, trying to be polite to people, joke around with them, make them a little bit comfortable. And then they would get on the air.
Yeah, exactly. I was aware. I was aware too, because I was in charge of getting them into a Zoom call to, like, prep them. Like, that's what they do on real news networks as well. They'll bring you into a waiting room and then they'll put you on the air after they come back from like a commercial break or something. We did that as well, and I brought them on. I was like, "Hey guys, how's it going?" Stuff like that. It was like talking to like a brick wall to like a couple of people. It was like you couldn't get them to, like, they were like just woke up out of like sleeping or something, and when they were on there, they're like clearly not wanting to say anything or talk. They was like, yeah, whatever. It's like, what the hell? It's like you can't come on someone else's show and act like that. It's like it's supposed to be a lively show, not like where everybody's acting like they're dead.
Yeah, that was so annoying. And remember Mr. Sleepyhead? We were like, "Oh yeah, let's bring him on." And then you brought him on, and he's like getting up in the camera frame. He's going, "Oh," and we're like, "Oh hey, what's up, man? Oh hey,
Oh my goodness.
like wearing like the little nightcap and everything." It's like that pissed me off so much, especially with who that person was, because and y'all don't know who they are, but I'm gonna tell y'all about what went on with that. We invited them on. We had 3 slots for guests. Each one was 30 minutes long. We told them all of that up front. So this one guest accepted, and I was like, cool. So I was keeping them up to date, and then I went quiet on them for about 2 weeks because there's nothing really to keep them up to date on. I just told them, make sure to make a tentative date in your calendar for this time at this part of the day to be on the air. And so then I get a call from them about, let's see, what was it, man? It was like a week and a half before the show was going to go live, so it was a little bit too late to try and find a new guest, because something that these YouTubers don't tell you is that it takes them about a good year to get back to every email, or to get back to an email you're sending them that they know you were going to send them. And I'll admit I'm kind of a bit of at fault for that. I also do that a little bit as well, especially with my channel email. Matthew's the one who usually answers emails. I don't answer any because usually they look like phishing attempts. I'll say that for y'all. Like, if y'all ever send an email somehow to the actual channel's account and it has a link in it, I never click links. Because I don't know what's on that link. I don't know if it's some kind of a phishing attempt, so no links ever get clicked. And that's something that someone also tried to do recently. Like, the last time we talked to them was mid 2022 on Discord, and then they sent a massive pre-prepared message with links in it to a Google Drive, and I was like, I'm not their story was interesting sounding, but I was like, I'm not clicking on that, because the last time the last time someone talked to us years ago and then reached back out to us, we were trying to serve another YouTuber with legal documents. We told them what we were doing and how to do it, and then it turns out that they were actually friends with the hot dog man and just went and told them exactly what we were trying to do, and even told him that we had actually figured out where he was in Kyiv to try and get him the legal papers. So that was something where I was like, okay, we can't trust anyone we haven't had contact with in years, so I'm not clicking on any links. But beyond that, the whole thing I was trying to get to there was it's something else when they don't respond to emails and you're trying to invite them on a show that they want to be on, and then they don't even give the time to respond to emails. So anyways, getting back to the original story, this guy, a week and a half before we're supposed to be having this show, tells me that, you know what, while y'all are running a fundraiser for a nonprofit in Ukraine on the stream that I'm going to be on, which is great and all because you're going to be helping out the Ukrainian people, I actually think it would be a lot more fun to be at a pilots forum in Berlin instead that day. And so I've just decided that I'm going to take off that day and not come on the show. So I had to literally get them on a call and pretty much beg them to show up for the sake of their own nation. That we are trying to help out for them, to get on there so that way we can try and promote the fundraiser and help out people in Ukraine. And so reluctantly, they finally agreed just a week before it was going to go live that they would show up, and then they show up as Mr. Sleepyhead and act like they can't even be there. And that whole entire thing annoyed me greatly. Suffice it to say, that person never came back as a guest, and we never even considered them as a guest beyond that point. But that was a very, very annoying thing to deal with. So annoying.
And also just to clarify this as well, like I get it. Like if you're coming on like the camera or something like that, you're not really like familiar with us a whole bunch and stuff like that. You're probably going to be nervous coming on. And I was trying to like break the ice when we brought them into like the Zoom call and stuff like that, and trying to get them talking so that way they felt more comfortable. But to me, I detected honestly kind of like bad attitudes from most of the guests we brought on. Honestly, kind of had a bad attitude. I'm not sure what the deal was, or if they had spoken to each other or something before they came on, or maybe they were upset about what had been done to Hot Dog Man or something. I'm not sure what the deal was. But they seemed like they really were not wanting to be there for some reason. So from that point forward, we've been kind of like traumatized from bringing guests on. That's why we really haven't had any more on. Because we don't want that to happen again. And it seems like most of the people in the pro-Ukraine community kind of have bad attitudes when it comes to working with other YouTubers.
Oh, you know what? You know what's funny though is that recently that Welcome Back Defenders went on to that one show that it isn't even within the scope of what he even talks about, and then ended up looking very stupid. Like we say that you would end up looking like if you did so. Like I don't know why people don't listen to us. Like we actually give advice to the other YouTubers, whether we like them or not, on how in the world not to look stupid and how in the world not to blow the whole thing up in your face on running a YouTube channel that covers this kind of stuff. And none of them ever listen, and then they end up learning the lesson the hard way. I don't know why they all do that. It's weird. Like, it really is, because we were like, we wouldn't go on Fox or CNN because they just go and try and make you look like an idiot, because that's what they bring on guests like us for. And so then they go, you know what, this Piers Morgan guy, who's known for making all of his guests look like idiots, he invited me on. I ought to go over there and look like an idiot. It's like, you got no brains. Like, I don't know what in the world.
We didn't even do that to our guests, man. We brought them on and just let them say their whatever was on their mind. That one guy who basically got confrontational with me that we brought on the stream on that one night where we did the live on camera thing. I think everybody remembers that guy. I didn't like respond back with anything confrontational to start an argument, because that wasn't the whole point of the show. It was supposed to be upbeat and also raising money for Ukraine. But the guy got smart with me at one point, and I was like, should I respond to that? And I was like, no, I'll just keep like going along with what I'm doing here and just ignore it. But he was very arrogant and confrontational. If I could go back, though, like knowing how it went, I would probably decide to maybe argue with the guy a little bit or debate him or something like that. But when he left the show after being treated like a softball, he left the show and cried for
all
24
day.
hours.
Yeah,
Which made no sense, because we treated him really good, even while he was being basically a smart ass to us. We didn't say a word back in response to him acting like that, so he left crying. So I mean, hell, I don't know, man. It's like, it's tough as hell having guests on the show, especially when they're YouTubers.
Listen, I'm gonna have to say, just flat out, the way we ended it, like we went to a break every time we would switch out a guest. So there was like a 5-minute intermission where y'all would watch like a pre-made video or something, and we would bring on another guest. When we got that specific guest that got confrontational off air, I sat there and still said some nice stuff to the guy. I said, hey, man, like, that was great. I mean, it looks like people really enjoyed having you on. It was great talking to you. I mean, we ought to do this more often, man. It was great. Yeah, take care. And then he goes crying all day after that. and then I even reached out to the guy afterwards, like that day, and said, hey, dude, are you okay? Are you good? Is everything all right? I'm fine. I just need time. Honestly, that was
bitch. And then later he bashed
like,
us on the show.
Yeah.
Remember, he got off there and then bashed us, saying, I don't really like the format and stuff like that. It's like, dude, you were literally allowed to come on our show, speak your mind, say your piece, be a smartass to Enforcer Matt, who was being very non-confrontational, and you left the show crying for 24 hours and then complained about how you got abused. It's like, come on, man. It's like, isn't that like the ultimate victim card you're pulling out?
I would have to say, Matthew, that whole experience with that guy, putting it out there flatly, was bitch made. I don't know how in the world to put it any other way, but that aggravated the hell out of me how that went, especially with how nice we were treating the guy, and then he gets off air and acts like he was traumatized by the experience. Like, we couldn't have made it more non-confrontational, more passive than we had. Like, there was no way we could have. And then the guy gets off crying. Like, you have to have absolutely no emotional fortitude to start crying after an experience like that, because it's not like we grilled him, it's not like we argued with him. We literally just let the guy speak his piece, whatever he wanted, and then he wants to get off and cry, and then he also wants to complain about being a guest on our show. Like we built that guy's channel, really, because the guy before he came on had 50,000 subscribers. Afterwards, 2 weeks later, he had 77. And most of it came from exposure of being on our show. And it's like, I don't know how in the world you could sit there and trash on a group of people who had nothing but nice things to say about you beforehand, invited you on the show. Like I handpicked that guy. My mom liked him at the time, so I was like, you know what, I'll handpick him and have him on the show. And so I invite him on the show personally, go out of my way to pick him and be like, we want you on the show. And then they come on the show, and we let the guy say whatever he wants, do whatever he wants, and then he wants to get off air and start crying all day like he's traumatized or something, and then start crapping on how we formatted our show. It's like, that is a really, really crappy kind of.
For the record, I warned everyone against all of them. For the record,
yeah,
I was behind the scenes actually saying, I was saying, you know, it could do us some good on the channel to bring these guys on and stuff like that. But I said, I'm not sure if it's a really good idea, because I think there's something a little lying under the surface about these guys that I really don't like or something. And also, I think they view us as competitors, and they might come on here expecting to fight with us or something to gain our viewers or something. And at the time, everyone was like, no, like they're just wanting to come on. I was like, I don't know. And then when they came on and started acting like they had a bad attitude, I was like, uh-oh, here we go.
And so with that, I hope that does go through that story fairly well. And with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one.
All right, so our next super chat here goes to DJ Waffle, who puts in a $20 donation. And also, don't worry, LSA Rocks and DJ Waffle, you did not get missed. This is the one right here from DJ Waffle. They said, you didn't answer my question about the old A10 and the AWACS surplus being phased out. And an old A10 on a drone system would be wicked, would it not?
I think the A10, if you could find a way to automate an A10, I think we should send them all to Ukraine, like all the ones being retired, if you could, because then at that point you're not running any risk to any pilots, because that would be my main concern about sending A-10s to Ukraine, is that if a pilot's flying them, they become a death trap for those pilots. They're going to be flying at such a low altitude most of the time that they're not really going to have any reaction time for when that A-10 gets hit to eject. So if you could automate an A-10 where it's pretty much a drone, I would say 100% send all of them to Ukraine, help them out that way. With AWACS, like if you're talking about the E-7s that are being decommissioned at the moment, I mean, we could send those to Ukraine too. I don't really think there would be any kind of technology that would be still sensitive in those. They're so old, there's really no way there could be. So I would say that probably would be fine too. But I think right now Sweden's sending 2 of their own AWACS aircraft. So if we wanted to add more AWACS for them, we could, but the training time for that would probably be incredibly long. Like by the time they were ever put into Ukrainian service, it would probably be post-war, at least from what I know. But still, I hope that does address that fairly well. Very interesting question. And do not worry, no one is getting missed. I saw DJ Waffle getting very unhappy thinking that they were missed. No one's getting missed. We have to get through all the questions, though, and also sometimes we like to take our time and talk about specific ones because they're either interesting or we can make something really funny out of it. So don't worry, if you threw something in, like a super chat, they all get addressed before the end of the night. I just want to make that very clear for everyone. We don't go and just ignore super chats. Every single one of them will be mentioned, and each and every one of y'all would be thankful for your support, and we'll address anything attached to the super chat. We also address live chats as well at the end of the stream, because you don't have to pay to get a question answered on this channel. Just want to make sure to throw that out there so that way no one's thinking that they're being missed or forgotten right now. It's just that we have to get to your questions, so please just have some patience, because we are getting to all of them with time. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to DJ Waffle. 2 more from DJ Waffle, and 2 $15 donations. And thank you very much, DJ Waffle, for the continued support tonight, and we appreciate it very much. And the first one says, I got something to say, something I mean. Good reporting, and thank you for what you do.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, and thank you for enjoying what we do, DJ Waffle. And what we do, we try our best to do what we do. And I'm gonna say thank you so much for enjoying it and helping this channel to keep on running. And also thank you for saying that we have good reporting. I just had to make sure to reread that and make sure I didn't miss anything. But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to DJ Waffle again, who says, I know F-16s are going to Ukraine, and why not send our older A-10s being phased out? And how about a Spectre gunship or an AWACS? They could use them, and we need them to have them. And thoughts?
And I thank you for the support again, DJ Waffle. And older A10s, once again, like you were saying a moment ago, if they were drone operated somehow or remote controlled, I would say that's a fairly good way to use them, because you're limiting the chances of pilots getting killed in their operation, which would probably be fairly high. I'm expecting that A10s would probably get shot down pretty prolifically in Ukraine currently. And let's see, a Spectre gunship, not a good idea. Spectre gunships are used in situations with complete air superiority. They are very niche, and we also have a very small amount of them currently in the U.S. Air Force, and we have them just so that way they can fill those niche specialized roles where they can actually be used. Just for y'all to know, the Spectre is so susceptible to ground fire that in Afghanistan, the only time that Spectres were used was when we had undoubted complete air superiority. There was no chance of ground fire, and we would only use them under the cover of darkness. They were never used in broad daylight because even then they were scared that small arms fire or heavy machine gun fire could end up hitting the Spectre even at incredibly high altitudes and pose a serious risk of danger for the crews operating on board the Spectre. And so I would say not a good idea for the Ukrainian battlefield, because it is certainly not a situation of uncontested air superiority over the skies right now. Those Spectres would end up getting shot down pretty much before they even made it to an orbiting position or something along that line. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, DJ Waffle. Very interesting questions, though. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, in our next super chats here, we have actually 4 of them, and they're left with actually a comment, but a short comment. And our next one here goes to Cypress96, who puts in a $14 donation, along with Gunfox61, who puts in a 10 as well, and John Garner also puts in a 10, along with Butchie777. And they said, "I love my LSA." And big thanks to all 4 of you for that support and helping to keep the channel running and leaving the kind comments as well. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I agree completely as well. A huge shout out for y'all throwing in the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And a huge shout out for y'all loving the LSA. We love the LSA as well. It is an amazing group. One of the best out there in the world, in my opinion, supporting Western interests wherever they may be in every corner of the globe. And I got to thank each and every one of y'all for supporting this channel and being proud of the incredible community that y'all have been able to build alongside us. It's an amazing one, and I got to thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Andres W, who puts in a $10 donation, and this is their first ever super chat on a stream. And huge shout out to you, Andres, for that support. He says, "I had my question answered already, and keep up the great work, Enforcer and Enforcer Matt."
And thank you so much for the support, and thank you for enjoying having your question and answer, because we did answer your live chat a little bit earlier, and I gotta say, thank you so much for enjoying the stream and helping it to keep on running. No one has to support the channel at all, Andres W, and I gotta thank you for making the decision that you enjoy this channel enough and find it worthwhile enough to support, to throw in a super chat tonight, because each and every little bit of support helps this channel to keep on running. And I gotta say a huge thank you to you so much once again, and thank you for wanting us to keep up the great work. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Monsieur Gaston, who puts in a 10.
Hey!
And says, "To John Maho, the Marmot Governor."
Chon Maho.
That's a tank.
That is a tank. That's a Korean tank. Try dark mode. What? Oh my goodness! Wikipedia has added dark mode, dude. It is.
Oh.
But that's not what we're here for. Oh, hello there.
Oh, it's Alan. Welcome back, Alan. How are you? Oh, hello there, good sir. Could I interest you in some plums over here on the left? We haven't talked about them for a good minute. Show those plums. Let's see them. There they are. Look at this, with a little bit of leaf. And also, let's hear what the fly's got to say. What's he saying today, if anything? That poor bastard.
Aw, man. Me and my 30 live viewers are going to destroy you. Aww.
That poor bastard, he can't quit moaning.
Wait, no, better yet, man. Better yet, man. Aww. Damn, that pull cord ain't working. Or something like that. Just like a lawnmower or something like that. But anyways.
Oh, yes. I see you know you're moaning well.
"Oh man, this is the noise I make when I get another glizzy."
Oh no! Whoa!
Oh no.
Oh no!
Man, I've heard that while the hot dog man also runs the hot dog stand, I've also heard that he is apparently going door to door selling Dysons because he knows the suction power. You know what I mean?
Oh no!
I'm just saying,
He's
I
the
heard.
glizzy gobbler.
Dude, why that sound like the Grim Reaper? Oh no, he's the glizzy gobbler of St. Paul.
Oh,
And
whoa!
it's like the freaking Grim. It's like what Jack the Ripper of Fleet Street or something. Like that. Oh my lord, goodness, oh my goodness. But it is the Marmot. We love Alan the Marmot, and I gotta say thank you, Monsieur Gaston, for allowing us to see this beautiful Marmot. And also, I don't know how to chonmaho this Marmot, but we can show y'all the chonmaho. So I'm going to throw that in really quickly to make sure we cover all the bases. Here we go. Yes, sir. It's the chon. That's actually the crappiest picture we could get. That is the crappiest picture we could get. Oh, here we go. Here's a chonmaho destroyed in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia.
Oh.
Man, that thing be looking like a chongmao. But anyways, with that,
The guys are standing in front of it too, like, you see this? You see this tank? Look.
he's like, you see this shit? I'm just trying to walk to work, and there's a freaking burning tank in the street. And also, that one's covered with a tarp. That one got all creative back there.
Tarpaulin.
Dude, it's going to go around trick-or-treating in that tank. They're going to cut out some eye holes in it for the gunner, and they're going to be like, trick-or-treat! Something like that. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for support, Monsieur Gaston, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Ben Ite, who puts in a 10 as well. And huge shout out to you, Ben, for that support. He said, my grandfather spent many years walking uphill to school in the snow, only to return to the timber mines after class. He said, LSA, by the way, there's a company in the UK named Timber Mines, and it looks legit. A timber mine. That's where the money's at. Your grandfather must have been a wealthy man. He was in the timber mines, going to work hard at work every day. He's the American worker, but he's in the UK, so he's a British worker. But Enforcer, what say you?
It's real. There actually is a timber mines.
Oh, see, actually, I knew something I didn't even know I knew. I just knew it from because I knew.
Exceptional service and seamless transaction. Timber Mines is a sister company to Wood Mines, where I bought my fantastic gazebo from. Highly recommend Wood Mines for gazebos. I ordered some fence boards to measure, and Karen could not have made the transaction any easier and so helpful. I know, Karen not making a problem. Like, it's interesting. I won't go anywhere else for timber again. Fantastic staff, competitive prices, fast and friendly delivery. What more do you want? The weather, it's random object, general repairs, maintenance. If you need timber, Timber Mines should absolutely be your first and only choice. It looks like people have nothing but rants and raves to make about Timber Mines. So actually, that is probably the best shout out that Timber Mines from Wigan, England has ever been able to get. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. We ended up actually shouting out apparently a real business in Wigan. But still, thank you so much once again for the support, and thank you for pointing out the timber mines, Ben I. And there is a real timber mines in Britain. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to DJ Waffle, who puts in a 10 once again. And they said, thank you for what you do, and thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you for supporting this channel and helping to keep on running, DJ Waffle. And thank you so much for thanking us for what we do. And thank you so much for enjoying the answer to my question. I saw that you were getting a little bit uneasy up in the live chat. I saw it, and I was like, oh goodness, they think we've forgotten them. And I looked at the spreadsheet, and you were literally the next in line. I was like, oh no. I was like, they think they've been forgotten, but alas, they are the next one. But I do thank you so much for the support, and I do hope you understand. Also, another thing that maybe folks don't know is that we address super chats by their size. So the biggest super chats come first. So while you may have thrown in a super chat at the very beginning of the stream, if it's a $5 super chat and there's like 10 $50 super chats before you, we read off the 10 50s before that 5, and then we get to the 5. So that may be why some people are like, wait a minute, I threw in my super chat and it hasn't been addressed yet. People who have thrown in super chats after me are getting addressed. What is up with that? Usually because they're categorized in order from largest to smallest. But with that, I hope that does address that very well. And thank you so much for giving us support and helping this channel keep on running bin. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and this one is going to go to Wilnus LSA Latvia, who puts in a €20 donation. And thank you very much, Wilnus LSA Latvia, for that support. He said, take a look at Latvian army equipment. And what more do we need, and what do you say?
Oh, yes. Let us take a look. Yes. All right, so we have the Glock. All right, Matthew.
That's a classic, a good classic, a 17. That's a good one. It's a long slide and a long handle, long grip.
Certified hood classic. You'll also have the flare gun.
Yeah, it'll pass.
They also have MP5s and UMP9s and an MP7.
That'll pass.
It's passable. They have shotguns. The Winchester
Bring out the
1300.
shoddy out here in Latvia.
Dude, they have this on Wikipedia. It's like, Estonia, where'd you get this? Oh, I bought this out of the Sears Roebuck catalog. It's like, what the hell? It's like, oh, I know where you use this one. Like, they have the 500. I have a 500. These are actually pretty good. And then they also have the 870, which I have something similar. It's called the Weatherby SA459. Fairly good. Well, this one's, I think, is a pump, but mine's a semi-auto. But anyways, moving on from that, they have G36s. Huh. These are kind of based off of the failed XM8, if y'all are wondering. And I think they also use the short stroke gas piston out of an AR-10, I think. So it's a really interesting rifle. The Germans use it as their primary standard issue. They also have M16s, fairly good, M14s, which are all right, and then Lee Enfields. I actually have one of these. I've never shot it, though, because the ammo is so expensive here in America, but I would like to shoot it one day. I would like to actually know. Outdated, because it's a bolt action. It has to be semi-auto these days for it to be fairly reliable and competent, but still, not bad. I mean, that thing's got some punching power behind it. Also, it's used by the honor guard, so it's not an actual service rifle. What the hell is this?
Whoa, that's a sniper. Look at that muzzle brake.
Man, look at that muzzle brake. This is...
It looks like it's clamped on like 2 pieces of metal.
Dude, it's French, Matthew. It's French.
Ugh.
Fusil de Toru de LE PGM, Hecat équipe du haut loin sur or something like that.
Man, they make a good rifle, but they don't put on a good Olympics.
Oh. That. Oh, man. Well, the small arms, of course, are taken. What the hell? Oh, it's an underslung grenade launcher. I thought that whole thing was a grenade launcher. I was like, okay, that's kind of normal. The stock was giving me some questions, but that's fairly normal. The Carl Gustav Classic. I mean, a real certified hood classic. I think it's really cool. Vehicles, pretty decent. They got the Nissan Navara. I mean, you can't go wrong with a Nissan Navara.
That looks like a Mercedes truck. Just like put a Nissan badge on the front.
Yeah, I mean, not bad. I think it actually... Land Rover Defenders. Not a bad choice.
Classic.
Classic. They got the G-Class Mercedes.
Classic.
I was about to say. I thought it was a classic. A Polaris, a classic. Let's see here. What else do y'all have? What do y'all have? Mortars.
They got a transit fan. Custom. Man, what'd they do with the front snout of this one?
Man, this thing is in Stratford-upon-Avon. Moving on from that, we have some mortars, we have some HIMARS. Well, actually, y'all are getting those. Y'all have some M109s. These are very nice. I think the Paladins are quite good. Let's see, anti-ship missiles. Y'all have the Naval Strike Missile, a very ambiguous name for an anti-ship missile. Iris-Ts, Stingers, Piorans, RBS-70s. These are actually Swedish, which are kind of neat. Also, this guy is rocking the fit. And then we have no tanks. Y'all don't have tanks. That might be a glaring shortcoming. No tanks. Yeah, I'm seeing that right. There are no tanks. Let's see. So y'all had 5 T-55s at some point in time that are now retired. So y'all had 5 of these in all of Latvia, and that was your tank force. So going off of that, if this list on Wikipedia is correct, there is a inherently massive shortage of tanks. And also self-propelled anti-aircraft guns. I would say that those two are some of the first things that need to be looked at, because that is a little bit concerning that there are no tanks to provide any larger fire support, direct fire support for the infantry. That is a little bit weird. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, Wilderness, and thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again.
And up next, a huge shout out to Carrie Ann LSA, who put in a $5 donation. And thank you very much, Carrie Ann, for that support. And also a huge shout out to Craig Snyder, who put in a 5 as well. Sorry about butchering your name there, but huge shout out to Carrie Ann and Craig very much for the $5 support. And sadly, no comments to address, but we appreciate it very much. And also, we have a 5 from CK Bold, who puts in the usual. He said, take a live chat question. And we shall, CK Bold, and thank you very much as always as well. And this live chat question goes to Barry Woodward, who says, talk about NATO troops in Europe. Do we have any more details?
NATO troops in Europe, we don't really have a lot of details at the moment. Right now, we know that the 82nd and the 101st are in Romania. There are currently some U.S. elements that are inside of Poland. I don't really think we have a good idea of what they are. The U.S. 1st Division was in Poland. Well, elements of the 1st Division were in Poland for a while. I don't know if they're still there at the moment, because we didn't really get any official press releases to confirm their continued presence in Poland or their removal back to their home fort here in the United States. So we don't know if the 1st Division is still in Poland. We do know that there are some detached elements of anti-air defense. I'm not really sure what their element size is. It's either a battalion or a brigade, but there are detached elements of a battalion or brigade-sized unit that are currently operating and fielding Patriot SAMs inside of Poland at the moment. We also know that there are smaller contingents of U.S. forces in the Baltics, although we believe that the biggest, these are most likely battalion-sized units and are most likely meant as a liaison force to the Baltic states, more so as than an actual defensive bulwark against the Russian Federation. That's what we would know about current U.S. deployments in the area. Beyond that, I couldn't really speak at great length about the British and the Germans or the French, because we don't really know a lot, at least for me right now. I'd have to declare ignorance. We don't know a lot about their current force deployments and where they may be in Eastern Europe. We believe that most of their armed forces are actually remaining within their home countries, and there isn't an incredibly large presence of them anywhere within Eastern Europe, such as Poland or the Baltics. We think that there is some British forces inside of Romania currently, because they are operating some Eurofighter Typhoons out of Romania. So we would assume that there is at least a fighter wing there, along with all of their support crews that would exist inside of Romania. But that would be what I understand, the best I can at the moment, off of the current force deployments that NATO has throughout Eastern Europe. Of course, very heavily emphasized on U.S. deployments in the area of Eastern Europe, because I wouldn't know much about any other deployments of any other forces from any other countries in Eastern Europe at the moment. But with that, I hope that does answer your question the best I can. And thank you so much once again, CK Bold, for sponsoring that live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to DJ Waffle once again, who puts in a 10 and says it's bedtime in AZ. Good night, and thank you, Enforcer, for the news. Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like you who help to make this channel possible and help us to keep this thing running. And so, huge thank you so much once again, DJ Waffle. I hope you have a great night tonight. Sleep well, and we will see you hopefully tomorrow. And thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And really quickly, yes, I saw someone in the chat say something that was a little bit too matter of fact, so I'm going to have to put it down. I'm so sorry to who this is. I'm sure that it wasn't something someone was hoping for, but it will have to happen. Where is it? Someone said, there are no elements of the 101st Airborne Division in Europe. According to Stars and Stripes, The 101st Airborne 3rd Brigade Combat Team is in Romania on a rotational mission to bolster NATO's position on its southeastern flank. The air base, positioned near the city of Constanta, is a hub for U.S. forces in the country. This was published April 19th of 2024, and so at the moment, according to the most current information that we have, which is from late April of 2024, just a few months ago, the 101st Airborne's 3rd Brigade is inside of Romania, and specifically somewhere around Constanta. We actually know that the air base is up here. This is the one that NATO is going to be expanding, but apparently the 3rd Brigade of the 101st Airborne is stationed out of this area. I am so sorry to put you down like that. I know many people like to have confidence in the statements, but when I'm working off of prior information, I generally do my due diligence to make sure that the information is accurate, or I declare ignorance if I don't know. And so, seeing that someone wanted to say I was wrong, and I know I'm not wrong, because the last developments we heard, the entire 3rd Brigade is in Romania, along with the 82nd Airborne. I had to make sure to correct that. I'm so sorry. But anyways, giddy up now, giddy up, oh boy. With that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again, everyone, for letting me make sure to clarify that statement and make sure that it is accurate. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here goes to Robert, who puts in the 5. He said $5 for the inaugural LSA Memorial Lumber Miners Fund. Oh, I'm telling you what, they're not letting me live it down. I'm telling you,
man. Dude, you're gonna be like, what was that guy's name, man? Ernest Ford or whatever. He was like 16 tons, and what do you get? You know that guy. You know what I'm talking about?
16 tons. No, I don't actually.
Oh, well, he was some guy who was singing about working in a coal mine, but you're going to be singing about working in the lumber mine. He did like 16 tons of lumber out of the mine. But still, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And thank you for supporting the Memorial Lumber Miners Fund. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a 2 from Stephen Mosher, who says East Russia is a vulnerability that Putin has to address.
And I have to say, let's see here. East Russia. East Russia is a bit of a vulnerability, but no one really wants East Russia. Like, no one wants to care about the administrative costs of that. Russia kind of took it and then underdeveloped it, and so there isn't really a reason for them to worry about that, the security of that region. And also China, which is the only one who could seriously threaten their border security, has made it very clear that their interests are only on the small islands in the Amur River, and they have not wanted to claim the southeastern area of the Russian Federation near to Vladivostok. However, this is something that you might find really interesting. The Republic of China, which is also known in the modern day as Taiwan, their official claims actually do include Vladivostok. They do claim that that is a part of the Republic of China and that they will eventually try and get it back. Well, they actually dropped those claims about around the late 90s, but all the way up until the late 90s, they were very adamant. Not only was all of mainland China theirs, but also parts of Russia, like Vladivostok, is theirs as well, which is a really interesting thing, and we could talk about that later, but we're starting to run short on time. But still, thank you so much once again for support. Also, Stephen is saying the 3rd Brigade is now back in Fort Campbell. Let me go see 101st Airborne in Romania. Let's see what we got here. So let's see here. I'm trying to see here. Let's see. So let's see, the 101st Airborne, the 3rd Division, was deployed there in 2022 at the latter part of the year, and I'm not seeing any statements to say that they have been withdrawn from the area and pulled back, and it would be incredibly weird, especially considering the tensions are continuing to rise, that the 101st Airborne would have been deployed near Constanta and then withdrawn, and there has been no comment about their return by anyone, by the Army's website, or anyone anywhere. So with that, let's see here. With that, I would still have to say, based off of prior information, an element, a brigade-sized unit of the 101st Airborne is still inside of Romania at this moment, because we don't have any information publicly that we can read to say that they've come back. Because, of course, with that kind of stuff, we have to go off of official government statements or statements that were made in quotations of official government statements, which does extend to the Department of Defense. And the Department of Defense has not released any information saying that the 101st Airborne is no longer in Romania or in Europe at all. It appears that according to prior information from late April, they are still inside of Romania like they have been since late 2022. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Jim Sellers, who puts in a 2 and says much love, and thank you very much, Jim, for the support as well. Also, in the meantime, shout out to John Jameson, also Point of Guinness, for each putting in a $1 donation and leaving no comments. But Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta say, thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like y'all who helped to make this thing possible. Much love to all three of y'all, Jim Sellers, John Jameson, and Pointed Guinness. Because if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running. And so with that, thank you to all of y'all so much once again. And with that, we are moving on into the question segment. And of course, due to time constraints, we won't be able to get to every single live chat, but we will try. And so, with that, Matthew, what do we got?
So tonight we have the Morse code decoders, the whole roster. Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Kevin J, Paul Schultz, and David Millsaps. They said the Morse code says the Russians are falling apart from the inside out. Hopefully it'll be quicker. LLT, LSA.
Why did you read that off like, welcome back, defenders? I was
Yeah,
like,
I
what?
did. I did.
Man, I was like, dude, that sounds uncanny. But with that,
Hopefully it'll be quicker. LLT, LSA. Thank you.
I mean, welcome back, defenders. Enforcer here. You got it. Good job. The voice crack was bad right there, but shh. There's the sound of money, and y'all got it dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message. I got to give y'all a huge congratulations, huge, for getting that correct. Y'all have gotten that correct for 844 days of the war. Y'all will continue to get it correct for another 884 if needed. And so with that, I hope that is just it.
And also have to give a big shout out to Jim Sellers, who put in a 5 and said LSA.
And thank you for the support, Jim Sellers, for helping this channel to keep on running, because I had a rough day. And so, like I'm some kind of a teen or something who has to balance my emotions, I went to IHOP instead of just getting on with my day like a grown person would. But beyond that, thank you so much for the support. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
This one goes to Zach Dennison, who says, do you think that NATO and UK and USA could beat Russia and China and Iran? No nukes in the equation.
Wholeheartedly, yes, I think we could. Because the Chinese are still trying to integrate their modern abilities, which will take years. Like, we're talking about a war starting right now. Their navy isn't up to snuff. Yes, it's the largest navy in the world by number of hulls in the water, but that doesn't mean anything. Most of those are motor torpedo boats. They would not stand a chance. We would obliterate the Chinese navy at sea. Of course, we would take losses. Let me make that clear, but we'd still obliterate them. Also, on top of that, with the Russian Federation, that is a one-and-done deal. I mean, hell, the British and the Germans could just take them on their own, and they would win, no doubt about it. And so, I would say, yes, we could take them all on and win in a conventional war if nukes were not in the equation. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion, and I could be wrong. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Kat Nico, who says, do you think that Putin will mysteriously die in a tragic logging accident? And if he does, who will be his heir, so to speak?
Yeah, I think he might, especially if it's a collapse in the lumber mines. He could die pretty quickly. And so I would say there would be a new, if he died, of course there would be a new leader. I don't know who it would be, though, because usually finding a new leader in those kinds of governments, they could literally come climbing up out of nowhere in the Russian government, some obscure bureaucrat, and end up being the leader of the country. Kind of like Putin. Putin was an obscure bureaucrat before the war. Well, not before the war, but before the fall of the Soviet Union, and then he somehow climbed his way up to the top to be the dictator of the Russian Federation. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
All right, and that viewer is Robert Gates. He says, has the U.S. already sent Ukraine the entire $61 billion? And is that why the U.S. has found another $2 billion?
No, actually, we've been sending it to them in chunks of several billion at a time, like 6 to 8 billion a piece. We have not run out of that money yet. So the accounting error, I think, is in the middle of us giving them all the money that we told them we would give them. We're trying to find ways to squeeze a little bit more out of the lemon, in a sense, to get a little bit more juice. I think that's what that is. It's not that we've run out and they're trying to find more. It's that we're starting to run out, and now we're trying to find more before all the funds completely run out, and then it really does look like some sort of funny business, at least happening with budgeting. But with that, I hope that does, or really more so appraising, because that's what it really is. It isn't really budgeting. It's more so appraising of old military equipment. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And before we round out tonight's stream, we actually have another $20 super chat from Ari Sweeney. Kiwi Wife and Finn. And Ari Sweeney said, for the Microtech Seed Fund. And I gotta say, thank you for the Microtech Seed Fund.
Hey, my mic's not picking me up.
Dude, you literally went, and I was like, oh. I was like, his mic cut out. Dude, that sounded like one of those memes where someone starts screaming, then you get like yanked into like the darkness so quickly. You know, you really hear them scream. They're like, hey, there's some kind of a, and then it's like they just disappear immediately. They're like, where'd they go? But beyond that.
Also, by the way, Ari Soini was making this super chat right here because we were talking about EDC. And Ari had asked, what do you EDC every day? I said a Glock 43X for the firearm, and for the knife, because they asked specifically about the knife. I said a Microtech Ultratech 1T, which is an automatic knife. And sadly, Ari can't get an automatic knife because the law in the country don't allow it, which is sad because I love auto knives. They're very nice. And also the one I've got, it kicks like a mule. It's got a good action on it. So if y'all have a Microtech, y'all know what I'm talking about. They really are good auto knives. But thank you very much for the Microtech Seed Fund, by the way. That is very kind of you, and thank you very much for that. We'll have to hook Andrew up with one day, because I don't think he has one. And he'll have to get one day.
I just carry guns, for defensive purposes. If someone is close enough that I'm using a knife, they've gotten way too close. That is usually my opinion on that. Because I really do believe in the idea of trying to retreat, because if I'm in that kind of a situation, I fear for my life. I'm not wanting to get close to these people. I want to be as far away from them as possible. But we will still have to see about getting one, because why not? It's America and they look cool. And so with that, thank you so much for the support, Ari Sweeney, Kiwi Wife and Finn, for the Microtech Seed Fund. We will enjoy the Microtechs and the seeds. And so with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank all of y'all so much once again for watching. If y'all have enjoyed, make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to comment. Make sure to subscribe. We run the stream every single day of the week, 6 days a week, except for Monday. And of course, we are so happy to have y'all here every single night. Tonight, 56,000 people have watched this stream. YouTube says that at the peak, there was only about 4.7 of y'all. That's a lie. There was like maybe 7,000 of y'all or so. We'll find out tomorrow. Because last night, as many of y'all know, and y'all can go back into the stream and watch this, we said last night the peak viewership was around 6, well, it was like 6.8 or something like that. YouTube said it was while we were live. They updated it, and now it's 9.4 thousand live viewers at the peak. So they're underreporting us every day. We know that. So there's a lot more here than YouTube's telling us that are watching right now, but we are still happy to have y'all here, whether we can see y'all or not. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And with that, good night, folks. Get some rest. We'll see you all tomorrow. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava. And be sure to join us tomorrow for the Short War video midday and the stream once again at 10 p.m. Eastern, like usual. And with that, good night.
Yes. The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.